When Ethan Miller walked into his kitchen at 6:15 a.m., he expected burnt toast and leftover coffee. What he found instead was his CEO, barefoot, confident, and flipping pancakes like she owned the place. Lena Hartwell wasn't supposed to be here. She wasn't supposed to know where he lived. And she definitely wasn't supposed to be wearing his college t-shirt. One look at her calm, knowing smile told him everything. His carefully controlled life was about to detonate. Stay with me until the end of this story, because what happens next will change everything you thought you knew about second chances. And hey, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Ethan Miller's life ran on precision, not the kind born from obsession, but from necessity. Single fathers didn't get the luxury of chaos. They didn't get to sleep in, forget the grocery list, or show up late to parent-teacher conferences. They especially didn't get to fall apart when the alarm clock screamed at 5:45 a.m. on a Thursday morning. So when Ethan's eyes cracked open that morning, his body already knew the drill. Feet hit the floor. Stretch. Bathroom. Check on Lily. Start the coffee, pack her lunch, review the day's meetings, shower, dress, wake Lily at 6:30, breakfast by 6:45, out the door by 7:20. Every morning, the same choreography, the same reliable, predictable dance. Except today, the music stopped. Ethan shuffled down the narrow hallway of their modest two-bedroom apartment, rubbing sleep from his eyes. The morning light was just beginning to soften the darkness, filtering through the cheap blinds in pale gold streaks. He could already smell coffee, which was strange because he hadn't started the pot yet. His brain, still foggy, tried to make sense of it. Did I set the timer last night? No, he never did that. Too risky. He'd tried it once and ended up with a burnt carafe and a smoke detector that woke Lily at 4 a.m. Ethan pushed open the kitchen door and froze. Standing at his stove, barefoot on the cold linoleum floor, was a woman. Not just any woman. Lena Hartwell, CEO of Hartwell Dynamics. The woman whose picture hung in the corporate lobby beside words like visionary and transformative. The woman who, 3 months ago, had walked past Ethan's cubicle without a glance while he frantically pretended to look busy. She was here, in his kitchen, wearing faded gray sweatpants and an old college t-shirt he'd forgotten he owned, University of Michigan, class of 2012, with a coffee stain near the hem that no amount of washing had ever removed. Her dark hair, usually swept into a flawless knot for board meetings, hung loose around her shoulders. She wasn't wearing makeup, no heels, no power suit, just presence. That inexplicable force that made boardrooms go silent and investors reach for their checkbooks. And she was flipping pancakes. "Good morning, Ethan," she said without turning around. Her voice was warm, casual, as if this were the most natural thing in the world. "Coffee's ready. I made it the way you like it. 2 sugars, splash of cream, none of that fancy nonsense." Ethan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. No sound came out. Lena glanced over her shoulder, a small smile playing at the corner of her lips. "You might want to breathe. Standing there like a statue won't help either of us." His voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. "What? How?" "Full sentences, Ethan. I know you're capable of them. I've read your emails." She slid a pancake onto a plate with the ease of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. The spatula moved with confidence. No hesitation, no second guessing. Ethan's brain finally kicked into gear, flooding him with fragments of memory. The gala. Last night. The Hartwell Dynamics annual investor gala. The one his manager had insisted he attend, even though he'd wanted nothing more than to stay home with Lily and watch Encanto for the 47th time. He remembered the ballroom, the chandelier light, the too-tight tie, the speech Lena had given about innovation and courage, the way she'd looked at him across the room, directly at him, while talking about untapped potential. He remembered the bar, the conversation, her laugh when he'd accidentally called the hors d'oeuvres fancy crackers, the way she'd listened when he talked about Lily, really listened, not with the polite nod of someone waiting for their turn to speak. And then the memories got hazy. Wine, more conversation, her hand on his arm, the elevator, his apartment door, the couch, her lips, The breathless confession that she'd been watching him for months, that she saw something in him no one else did. "Oh God," Ethan whispered. "Eloquent." Lena turned off the stove and faced him fully, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed. "For what it's worth, you were significantly more articulate last night." Heat flooded Ethan's face. "Ms. Hartwell, Lena." Her tone was firm but not unkind. "After last night, I think we can drop the formalities, don't you?" "This is insane." Ethan ran both hands through his hair, a nervous habit he'd never managed to break. "You're my boss. You're the CEO. You're you, and I'm just a brilliant analyst whose proposal could save this company millions," Lena finished. She picked up 2 mugs of coffee, crossed the small kitchen, and handed one to him. Their fingers brushed. The contact sent a jolt up his arm. A single father who reorganized the entire procurement system in his spare time because he was bored? A man who actually reads the footnotes in quarterly reports? Ethan stared at her. "How do you know about the procurement system?" "I'm the CEO, Ethan. I make it my business to know when someone in my company is working 3 levels above their job description." She took a sip of coffee, her eyes never leaving his. "Your manager, Marcus, took credit for it at the last executive meeting, submitted it under his name. I let him. Wanted to see what you'd do." The words hit like a physical blow. "You knew?" "I know everything that happens in my company." Lena's voice was matter-of-fact, but there was steel beneath it. "Marcus is a parasite, competent enough to avoid getting fired, not competent enough to actually innovate. He's been coasting on other people's work for years." "Then why haven't I fired him?" Lena smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of a chess player 3 moves from checkmate. "Because I wanted to see who had the spine to fight back. Most people just accept it, swallow their anger, stay quiet, keep their heads down." "I have a daughter," Ethan said quietly. "I can't afford to make waves." "I know, Lily, 7 years old, loves dinosaurs and wants to be a paleontologist. Allergic to shellfish, reads at a 5th grade level even though she's in 2nd grade. Lena tilted her head slightly. "You packed her lunch last night, turkey sandwich, no mayo, apple slices, and those organic fruit snacks she likes. It's in the fridge." The coffee mug shook in Ethan's hand. "How do you—" "I pay attention, Ethan. It's what I do." Lena set down her mug and stepped closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. "Last night wasn't a mistake. It wasn't impulse. It wasn't too much wine and poor judgment. Then what was it?" "A decision." Her eyes, deep brown, sharp as cut glass, held his. "I've been watching you for 6 months. Ever since you sent that email to Marcus about the supply chain inefficiencies, the one he ignored. I had my assistant pull it from the server." Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "That was internal. That was brilliant." Lena's voice softened. "It was brilliant, Ethan, and it was wasted on a middle manager who wouldn't recognize innovation if it filed a formal complaint with HR." "Why are you telling me this?" The question came out barely above a whisper. "Because at 9 a.m. this morning, Marcus is going to walk into his office and find a termination notice. And at 9:30, you're going to receive an email offering you his position, with a significant raise in a corner office." The kitchen tilted. Ethan grabbed the counter to steady himself. "You can't, that's not—" "I can. I am. And before you spiral into a panic about ethics and propriety, know that Marcus's termination has nothing to do with you and everything to do with 3 years of documented mediocrity and one very expensive mistake he made last quarter that I've been waiting to use." Lena's expression was calm, controlled. "The promotion is yours because you earned it. Because your work is exceptional. Because I need people who see problems and fix them instead of waiting for permission." "This is crazy," Ethan breathed. "This whole thing is—" "Unconventional," Lena corrected. "Not crazy. I don't do crazy, Ethan. I do calculated. And last night—" She paused, something flickering in her expression, something almost vulnerable. "Last night was the first time in 5 years I've done something just because I wanted to. Not because it served a strategic purpose. Not because it checked a box. Because I wanted to." The admission hung in the air between them. Ethan's mind raced. Part of him, the cautious, responsible part, that had kept him and Lily afloat for 7 years, was screaming to shut this down, to thank her politely, ask her to leave, pretend this never happened. But another part, a part he'd buried under bills and bedtime stories, and the weight of being enough for a little girl who'd already lost one parent, that part was electrified, alive. The gala, he said slowly. When you looked at me during your speech, when you talked about untapped potential, you meant you. Lena nodded. I meant you. But why? The question burst out of him, raw and unfiltered. I'm nobody. I'm a mid-level analyst who shows up, does his job, and goes home to his kid. I'm not special. You're wrong. The certainty in her voice stopped him cold. You're wrong, Ethan, and frankly, I'm tired of watching you hide behind that lie. Lena set her mug down with a soft clink. You think I got where I am by overlooking talent? By missing the people who actually make things work? You wrote a proposal last year, the one about integrating AI into our logistics network. Marcus shelved it, said it was too ambitious, too risky. Ethan remembered. He'd spent 3 months on that proposal, working late after Lily went to bed, modeling scenarios, running projections. Marcus had barely skimmed it before tossing it in a drawer. I pulled it, Lena continued. Had my team run the numbers. Your projections were conservative by 15%. If we'd implemented it when you submitted it, we'd have saved $4.2 million by now. The number punched the air from his lungs. But we didn't, Lena said, her voice hardening slightly. Because Marcus doesn't take risks. He doesn't innovate. He protects his position by making sure no one under him shines too brightly. She stepped closer until only a foot of space separated them. I won't let that happen anymore. This is too much, Ethan whispered. The promotion, last night, all of this. It's too much, too fast. Life doesn't wait for you to be ready, Ethan. It just happens. Lena's hand rose, hesitated, then gently touched his arm. The same touch from last night. The one that had made him feel seen for the first time in years. And right now, something is happening that you need to know about. The shift in her tone triggered every alarm bell in his head. What? Sit down. Lena, sit down. Not harsh, but unyielding. Ethan sank into one of the mismatched kitchen chairs. Lena remained standing, her arms crossed, her CEO mask sliding back into place. 3 weeks ago, she began, I received intelligence that Trimark Industries is planning a hostile takeover. They've been quietly buying up shares through shell corporations. By my calculations, they'll make their move in 72 hours. Trimark. Ethan knew the name. Everyone in the industry did. Ruthless, efficient. They didn't acquire companies to improve them. They gutted them, sold off the valuable pieces, and discarded the rest. If they succeed, Lena continued, her voice steady but cold, they'll dismantle R&D first. Then they'll outsource manufacturing. Your department, data analytics, will be liquidated within the first quarter. Everyone in it will be out of a job. The words landed like stones in his stomach. How many people? In your department? 47. Lena's jaw tightened. Company-wide? Over 3,000. 3,000 families. 3,000 people who depended on steady paychecks and health insurance and the promise that if they worked hard, they'd be okay. What are you going to do? Ethan asked. I already did it. Lena's smile was sharp, dangerous. At 3 a.m. this morning, I finalized the acquisition of Trimark Industries. Ethan's brain stuttered. You, what? I bought them. She said it like she was discussing the weather. Spent the last 2 weeks liquidating personal assets, calling in favors, leveraging every connection I've built over 15 years. As of 3:47 a.m., Hartwell Dynamics owns 61% of Trimark Industries. That's impossible. A deal like that takes months. Lawyers, regulatory approval, due diligence. I'm very good at my job, Ethan. Lena's eyes glittered. And I have very expensive lawyers who are also very good at theirs. He tried to process it. Failed. Why are you telling me this? Because the board meets in Paris in 4 days. They're going to want to know what I plan to do with Trimark. And I'm going to tell them we're integrating their logistics network using the system you designed. She leaned down, her hands on the table, her face level with his. I need you in that room with me. I need you to present your proposal to the board, to show them that Hartwell Dynamics doesn't just survive hostile takeovers. We turn them into opportunities. Ethan's mind reeled. I can't. I have Lily. I can't just leave. I know, which is why my assistant already contacted your sister. Emma, right? Lives in Ann Arbor. She said she'd be happy to watch Lily for a few days. We'd leave Sunday, be back by Wednesday night. You contacted my sister? Ethan's voice rose. You, without asking me. I asked if she was available for childcare this week. I didn't tell her why. I didn't tell her where you'd be. Lena's voice remained calm. I'm not a monster, Ethan. I'm just efficient. This is insane. He shot to his feet, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. All of this, you can't just rearrange my life because you decided. I'm not rearranging your life. I'm offering you a chance to step into the one you should have had years ago. Lena didn't back away, didn't flinch. You can say no. You can tell me to leave. You can go into work today and pretend this never happened. Marcus will still be fired. You'll still get the promotion, and you'll still spend the next 10 years wondering what would have happened if you'd said yes. Her words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. Why me? Ethan asked again, softer this time. Of all the people in that company, all the people with MBAs and connections and... Because you see things others don't, Lena interrupted. Because when everyone else was focused on quarterly profits, you were thinking 5 years ahead. Because you care about the work, not the credit. She paused. And because last night, when I asked you what you'd do if you weren't afraid, you told me the truth. Ethan's breath caught. He remembered the wine, the dim light of the hotel bar, the way she'd looked at him when she'd asked the question. I'd build something that mattered, he'd said, something that outlasted me, something Lily could be proud of. You remember, Lena said softly. I remember. Then you remember what I told you after. Her voice dropped, intimate. That I'd spent 10 years at the top of this company, and I was tired of being surrounded by people who only told me what I wanted to hear. That I was tired of people who saw me as a title instead of a person. You said you were lonely, Ethan whispered. I am. The admission was stark, unguarded. I'm very good at running a company, Ethan. I'm exceptional at strategy and negotiation and making the hard calls. But I'm very, very bad at letting people in, at trusting anyone to see me as something other than the woman in the power suit making 7 figures. Last night, you saw me. Lena's hand rose to his face, her palm warm against his cheek. And I saw you. Not the analyst. Not the single dad trying to hold it together, just you. The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sounds of the city waking up outside. Ethan's mind was a war zone. Logic battled with desire. Caution wrestled with possibility. I need time, he finally said. It's too much. I need to think. You have until Sunday at 6 p.m. That's when our flight leaves. Lena lowered her hand but didn't step back. But Ethan, I need you to understand something. This isn't charity. This isn't me rescuing you. This is me asking you to stand beside me because I believe in what you can do, and because I need someone I can trust. Trust. He nearly laughed. You barely know me. I know you show up early and stay late. I know you've never missed a deadline. I know you coach Lily's soccer team even though you hate sports. I know you read to her every night and you make her breakfast every morning, and you haven't taken a vacation in 3 years because you're saving for her college fund. Lena's eyes held his. I know you, Ethan Miller. Maybe better than you think. A sound from the hallway made them both freeze. Small footsteps, the creak of a door. Daddy? Lily's voice, sleepy and confused, drifted into the kitchen. Ethan's heart stopped. Lena stepped smoothly away, creating distance, her expression shifting instantly from intimate to neutral. By the time Lily appeared in the doorway, still in her dinosaur pajamas, her brown hair a tangled mess, clutching her stuffed triceratops, Lena was simply a woman holding a coffee mug. Hey, sweetheart, Ethan said, his voice only slightly strangled. You're up early. Lily rubbed her eyes, then focused on Lena. Her expression cycled through confusion, curiosity, and then, because she was 7 and had no filter, blunt assessment. Who are you? She asked. I'm Lena said, crouching down to Lily's level with surprising ease. I work with your dad. I'm sorry if I woke you. You're in our kitchen, Lily observed. I am. I made pancakes. Would you like one? Lily's eyes narrowed with the suspicion only children can muster. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Lily, Ethan choked. But Lena just smiled, a real smile, warm and genuine. That's a very direct question. Mommy always said direct questions get honest answers, Lily said matter-of-factly. Something flickered across Lena's face. Understanding. Respect. Your mommy was right. Honest answer? I'm your dad's friend, and I think he's very special. Lily considered this. He is special. He makes really good mac and cheese. I bet he does. And he helps me with my homework even when he's tired. That's because he loves you very much. I know. Lily nodded seriously. Then, apparently satisfied, she padded over to the table and climbed into a chair. Can I have a pancake now? Lena glanced at Ethan, a question in her eyes. He nodded, still too shell-shocked to do much else. Within minutes, Lily was happily demolishing a pancake drowning in syrup, while explaining in elaborate detail the differences between herbivorous and carnivorous dinosaurs. Lena listened with what appeared to be genuine interest, asking questions that made Lily light up. Ethan watched them, his heart doing complicated things in his chest. This was surreal. His CEO was in his kitchen feeding his daughter pancakes while discussing the Cretaceous period. This was his life now, apparently. Daddy? Lily said suddenly, syrup on her chin. Yeah, sweetie? Is Miss Lena going to stay for breakfast? Ethan looked at Lena. Lena looked back, something soft in her expression. If that's okay with your dad, Lena said. It's okay, Lily declared before Ethan could respond. We have enough pancakes. And just like that, the decision was made. They ate breakfast together. The three of them in that tiny kitchen with its chipped counters and the leaky faucet Ethan kept meaning to fix. Lena asked Lily about school. Lily asked Lena if she liked dinosaurs. She did, apparently, though she preferred velociraptors to triceratops, which sparked a vigorous debate. Ethan just tried to keep breathing. At 7:15, Lily scampered off to get dressed for school, leaving Ethan and Lena alone again. She's wonderful, Lena said softly. She is. Ethan stared at his coffee, unable to meet her eyes. She's everything. I know. If I do this, if I go to Paris, he forced himself to look up. I need to know Lily's okay. That's non-negotiable. Emma will take excellent care of her, and we'll be back in 3 days, 4 at most. Lena's voice was steady. I wouldn't ask you to do this if I didn't believe it was worth it. And after? Ethan asked. After Paris, after the presentation, what happens to... He gestured vaguely between them. This? I don't know, Lena admitted. I don't have a plan for this part. I'm used to having plans. Me too. They stood there, two people who'd built their lives on control and predictability, staring at the chaos they'd created. I should go, Lena finally said. Before Lily comes back and asks more questions we're not ready to answer. Yeah. But neither of them moved. Sunday, Lena said. 6 p.m. I'll send you the details. I haven't said yes. But you haven't said no. She smiled, small, almost shy. That's enough for now. She crossed to the door, then paused, looking back at him. For what it's worth, Ethan, last night was the best decision I've made in 5 years. Whatever happens next, I don't regret it. And then she was gone, slipping out of his apartment as quietly as she'd appeared, leaving only the faint scent of her perfume and a stack of dirty dishes. Ethan stood in his kitchen, surrounded by the evidence of the impossible morning. Pancakes, coffee mugs, the lingering warmth of a conversation that had turned his world inside out. Daddy! Lily's voice called from her room. I can't find my blue shirt. Real life demanding his attention, grounding him. He took a breath, then another, and for the first time in 7 years, Ethan Miller let himself imagine what might happen if he stopped playing it safe. The thought terrified him. It also made him feel more alive than he had in years. The office felt different. Ethan noticed it the moment he stepped through the glass doors of Hartwell Dynamics at 8:47 a.m. The receptionist, Maria, who usually greeted him with a distracted nod, looked up sharply, her eyes widening for just a fraction of a second before she smiled. A real smile, not the corporate autopilot version. "Good morning, Mr. Miller?" Mr. Miller. Not Ethan. Not a casual "hey" as he swiped his badge. He mumbled something in response and headed for the elevators, his mind still churning through the morning's impossible events. Lena's face across his kitchen table. Lily's innocent question. The weight of a decision he hadn't yet made pressing down on his shoulders like a physical thing. The elevator doors opened on the 7th floor, his floor, the realm of cubicles and fluorescent lights and the perpetual hum of computers processing data nobody would ever read. He wove through the maze toward his desk, a corner spot he'd claimed 3 years ago because it had a sliver of a window view. "Ethan!" He turned to find Jennifer Park, the senior analyst who sat 2 rows over, practically jogging toward him. Her usually calm demeanor had cracked, replaced by something between excitement and panic. "Have you heard?" she asked, her voice dropping to a stage whisper that somehow carried across half the floor. "Heard what?" "Marcus." Jennifer's eyes were huge behind her glasses. "Security escorted him out 20 minutes ago. Box of personal items, the whole 9 yards. People are saying he's fired." Ethan's stomach dropped. Lena hadn't been bluffing. Of course she hadn't been bluffing. Lena Hartwell didn't make idle threats. But some part of him had still half believed this morning was a fever dream. "What happened?" he asked, trying to sound appropriately shocked. "Nobody knows for sure. HR isn't saying anything, just that his employment was terminated effective immediately." Jennifer leaned closer. "But Sarah in legal told me there was some issue with expense reports, like serious issue. Fraud, maybe?" The pieces clicked together. Lena had mentioned Marcus making an expensive mistake last quarter. She'd been building a case, documenting everything, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Wow," Ethan managed. "That's wow." "Right?" Jennifer shook her head. 10 years with the company, and just like that, gone. Makes you think, like anyone could be next. "Yeah." She patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Anyway, we're all supposed to have a department meeting at 10, new management announcement or something." Her expression shifted, becoming almost sympathetic. "Hang in there, okay? I know you and Marcus had your issues." She walked away before Ethan could respond, leaving him standing in the middle of the office, surrounded by the buzz of gossip and speculation. His phone vibrated in his pocket, a text from an unknown number. "Meeting at 10. Conference room B. Don't be late. LH." Of course. Lena had his number. She probably had everyone's numbers, probably had their social security numbers and blood types too. Ethan made it to his desk and sank into the chair, staring at his computer screen without seeing it. Around him, the office continued its usual morning rhythm, keyboards clicking, phones ringing, the coffee machine in the break room gurgling out its questionable brew. But nothing was usual. Nothing would ever be usual again. "Ethan Miller?" He looked up to find a woman he didn't recognize standing at the edge of his cubicle, mid-30s, immaculate navy suit, carrying a leather portfolio that probably cost more than his monthly rent. "Yes?" "I'm Rachel Chen, Ms. Hartwell's executive assistant." She extended her hand with the kind of confidence that came from working directly for power. "Ms. Hartwell asked me to provide you with these materials for your review before the 10 o'clock meeting." She placed the portfolio on his desk with the reverence usually reserved for sacred texts. Ethan stared at it. "What is this?" "Background on the Trimark acquisition, financial projections for the integration proposal, and a preliminary agenda for the Paris board meeting." Rachel's expression was perfectly neutral, perfectly professional. "Ms. Hartwell thought you'd want time to prepare." The words hit him like cold water. This was real. This was actually happening. "I haven't," he started, then stopped. Couldn't exactly tell the CEO's assistant that he hadn't agreed to any of this. "Thank you. Ms. Hartwell also wanted me to remind you that discretion is important." Rachel's voice dropped slightly. "The Trimark acquisition won't be public knowledge until the board meeting. She trusts you understand the sensitivity of this information." "Of course." Rachel nodded once, crisp and efficient. If you have any questions, my contact information is on the inside cover. Ms. Hartwell expects your preliminary notes by end of day. She walked away, her heels clicking against the industrial carpet with military precision. Ethan opened the portfolio with trembling hands. The first page was a summary of the Trimark acquisition, the timeline, the financials, the strategy. His eyes caught on the numbers. Lena hadn't been exaggerating. She'd liquidated nearly $200 million in personal assets to make this happen. Stock options, real estate, investment portfolios, all converted to cash in less than 2 weeks. The next section outlined his proposal. His actual proposal, the one Marcus had dismissed, but expanded and refined with additional market analysis and risk assessment. Someone, probably an entire team of analysts, had taken his rough framework and transformed it into something boardroom ready. At the bottom of that page, a handwritten note in elegant script. Your idea, your presentation, your moment. Don't waste it. L. His chest tightened. Hey, Ethan? David Martinez, the junior analyst who sat across from him, was peering over the cubicle wall. You okay, man? You look like you've seen a ghost. I'm fine, Ethan said automatically, closing the portfolio. Just surprised about Marcus. Yeah, wild, right? David's expression was gleeful in the way people get when drama happens to someone else. Though, between you and me, Guy was a jerk. Remember when he took credit for your logistics optimization thing? Ethan's jaw tightened. I remember. Well, karma's a... David caught himself, glancing around to make sure no one from HR was listening. Anyway, maybe whoever replaces him will actually appreciate the people doing the real work, you know? Maybe. The morning crawled by with agonizing slowness. Ethan tried to focus on his usual tasks, reviewing data sets, updating models, responding to emails, but his mind kept drifting back to the portfolio, to Lena's note, to the impossible choice sitting in front of him like a live grenade. At 9:45, people started migrating toward Conference Room B. Ethan joined the flow, the portfolio tucked under his arm, his heart hammering against his ribs. The conference room was already packed when he arrived. Analysts, project managers, team leads, everyone from the data analytics department crammed into a space designed for maybe 20 people. The air was thick with anxiety and speculation. Ethan found a spot along the back wall, trying to be invisible. At precisely 10 a.m., the door opened. Lena Hartwell walked in, and the room fell silent. She was different from this morning. Gone were the sweatpants and bare feet. Now she wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Her hair swept back in that severe knot he recognized from company photos. Her heels added 3 inches to her already commanding height. She carried herself like someone who owned not just the room, but the building, the city, possibly the entire world. Rachel Chen followed a step behind, tablet in hand, expression unreadable. Good morning, Lena said. Her voice carried effortlessly across the crowded room. I'll keep this brief. As you're all aware, Marcus Torres's employment with Hartwell Dynamics was terminated this morning for violations of company policy and fiduciary responsibility. The details are confidential, but I want to be clear. This decision was based on documented evidence of misconduct spanning multiple years. The room was so quiet, Ethan could hear his own breathing. Effective immediately, Lena continued, the data analytics department will report directly to senior leadership while we conduct a search for new management. In the interim, I'll be personally overseeing critical projects and strategic initiatives. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. The CEO personally overseeing their department? That never happened. Lena's eyes swept the room, landing on faces, reading reactions. When her gaze passed over Ethan, it lingered for just a heartbeat longer than necessary. No one else seemed to notice. I want to be transparent with all of you, she said. Hartwell Dynamics is entering a period of significant change. We're facing challenges that will require innovation, adaptability, and courage. I need people who are willing to think beyond their job descriptions, who see problems as opportunities. She paused, letting the words sink in. To that end, I'm implementing a new initiative. We're calling it the Innovation Collective. It's a cross-departmental team focused on developing and implementing transformative solutions to our most pressing challenges. Lena's expression was unreadable. I'm personally selecting the initial members. If you're chosen, you'll receive notification by end of day. This is an opportunity to work directly with senior leadership, to have your ideas heard and implemented at the highest levels of this company. The room buzzed with energy. This was unprecedented. Junior analysts didn't get FaceTime with the CEO. They didn't get to work on high-level strategy. One more thing, Lena said, her voice cutting through the noise. Excellence is non-negotiable. Mediocrity is expensive. If you're not willing to challenge yourself, to push beyond what's comfortable, this isn't the place for you. We're building something here, something that matters, and I need people who understand what that means. She scanned the room one more time. Questions? Silence. No one dared speak. Good. Get back to work. She walked out, Rachel trailing behind her like a shadow. The room erupted the moment the door closed. Everyone talking at once, voices overlapping in a cacophony of speculation and excitement. Ethan slipped out before anyone could corner him, his mind reeling. Back at his desk, he opened the portfolio again, this time reading every page carefully. The proposal was brilliant. He could admit that objectively. It leveraged AI and predictive analytics to optimize supply chain management across both Hartwell and Trimark's networks, creating efficiencies that would save millions while actually improving service quality. It was ambitious, risky, the kind of thing that could either revolutionize the industry or fail spectacularly. It was exactly what he dreamed of building when he'd first started in this field, back before Lily, before Sarah got sick, before life had taught him that dreams were expensive and responsibility was heavy. His phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Read it? He typed back, yes. The response came immediately. And? Ethan stared at the screen, his thumb hovering over the keyboard. Finally, it's good, really good. It's yours. Your vision. I just helped with the math. This could fail. It could. Or it could change everything. His hands shook slightly as he typed, why me? You could have anyone. The response took longer this time, long enough that Ethan wondered if she'd gotten pulled into a meeting, if she'd reconsidered, because everyone else wants to tell me what I want to hear. You told me the truth, even when it was uncomfortable, even when it could have cost you. I need that. The company needs that. Another message followed. I need you. Not your deference, not your fear, you. Ethan closed his eyes, his heart doing complicated gymnastics in his chest. A shadow fell across his desk. He looked up to find Jennifer standing there, her expression curious. You okay? She asked. You've been staring at your phone for like 5 minutes. Fine, just processing everything. It's a lot, right? She perched on the edge of his desk, lowering her voice. The Innovation Collective thing. People are already making bets on who gets picked. Yeah? Smart money's on you, actually. Jennifer smiled. You're like the only person in this department who actually reads the quarterly reports. Plus, you've got that whole logistics optimization thing that Marcus tried to steal. Ethan's throat tightened. I didn't think anyone noticed that. Are you kidding? Everyone noticed. She shrugged. Marcus was vindictive. Nobody wanted to make waves. But we all knew it was your work. Thanks, he managed. Jennifer stood, straightening her blazer. Anyway, if you get picked for this collective thing, you'll kill it. You're one of the good ones, Ethan. She walked away, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the portfolio and the weight of a decision that seemed to grow heavier by the minute. At 4:47 p.m., an email appeared in his inbox. Sender, L.Hartwell. At hartwelldynamics.com. Subject, Innovation Collective. Initial assignment. His hand trembled as he clicked it open. Mr. Miller, you have been selected as a founding member of the Innovation Collective. Your first assignment begins immediately. Prepare a comprehensive presentation of your logistics integration proposal for delivery to the Board of Directors in Paris, France, on January 23rd. Flight details and accommodation information are attached. You will depart Sunday evening and return Wednesday night. Rachel Chen will coordinate all logistics and provide necessary support. This is not optional. This is an opportunity. Don't waste it. Regards, Lena Hartwell, CEO, Hartwell Dynamics. The email was professional, formal, completely appropriate for internal company communication. But at the very bottom, barely visible in light gray text, almost like an afterthought, I believe in you. Ethan read those 4 words over and over until they blurred. His phone rang. Emma, his sister. Hey, he answered, trying to sound normal. Okay, spill. Emma's voice was sharp with curiosity. I got a very polite, very vague call from some assistant asking if I could watch Lily Sunday through Wednesday. What's going on? It's a work thing. A work thing. Emma's tone made it clear she wasn't buying it. You haven't traveled for work in 3 years. What kind of work thing? Ethan closed his eyes. A big one. Important. I can't really talk about it. Ethan James Miller, you're killing me here. I know. I'm sorry. It's complicated. Emma was quiet for a moment, then softer. Is this a good thing? Like, good for your career? I think so. Maybe. I don't know yet. But it's important enough that you're willing to leave Lily for a few days. It wasn't a question. Yeah. Then I'll watch her. Of course I'll watch her. He could hear the smile in her voice. She can help me with my pottery class. Last time she was here, she made that bowl that's currently holding my keys. Relief flooded through him. Thank you, really. Just promise me something, Emma interrupted. What? Whatever this is, don't sabotage yourself. Don't talk yourself out of it because you're scared or because you think you don't deserve it. Her voice was fierce. Sarah would want you to take this chance, whatever it is. The mention of his late wife hit like a punch to the chest. Sarah, who'd fought cancer for 2 years with such grace and courage. Sarah, who'd made him promise in those final weeks that he'd keep living, that he wouldn't just exist for Lily's sake. I miss her, he whispered. I know, but she'd be so pissed if you let fear keep you small. Ethan laughed, watery and broken. Yeah, she would. So don't. Do the thing. Take the chance. Come back and tell me all about it over terrible wine and good cheese. Deal. After he hung up, Ethan sat at his desk for a long time, watching the sun set through the narrow window, painting the city in shades of gold and amber. At 6:15 p.m., most of the office had cleared out. The cleaners were making their rounds, vacuum cleaners humming in the distance. Ethan's computer pinged with a new message. Not email this time. The company's internal chat system. L. Hartwell. Still here? He typed, yes. L. Hartwell, conference room B, now. His heart rate kicked up. He grabbed the portfolio and made his way through the empty office, his footsteps echoing in the silence. The conference room door was closed. He knocked softly. Come in? Lena sat at the head of the table, her jacket draped over the chair behind her. Her shirt sleeves rolled up to her elbows. Papers and laptops covered the surface in front of her. She looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that came from carrying too much for too long. Close the door, she said without looking up. He did. Sit. He sat, choosing a chair 3 seats away. Safe distance, professional distance. Lena finally looked at him, her dark eyes assessing. You got the email? Yes. And I don't know how to do this. The words burst out before he could stop them. I don't know how to stand in front of a board of directors and convince them to trust me. I don't know how to present to people who've been doing this longer than I've been alive. I don't... Stop. Lena's voice was sharp, not angry, but commanding. Do you believe in the proposal? Yes. Do you understand the analysis, the projections, the implementation strategy? Yes, but then you know how to do this. She leaned forward, her intensity palpable. You're not selling them on you, Ethan. You're showing them a solution to a problem. You're demonstrating value. That's all this is. That's not all this is, he countered. This is my career, my future, my daughter's stability. If you fail, you'll still have your job. You'll still have your promotion. You'll still have options. Lena's expression softened slightly. But you won't fail. You can't know that. I can, because I've watched you work for 6 months. I've seen how you think, how you solve problems, how you refuse to settle for good enough when excellent is possible. She stood, moving around the table until she was standing beside his chair. You're afraid. That's normal, but don't let fear make you forget who you are. Ethan looked up at her. This woman who'd somehow seen him when he'd spent years trying to be invisible. Who am I? Someone brilliant, she said simply. Someone capable. Someone who deserves more than he's allowed himself to want. The air between them felt charged, electric. Sunday, Ethan said quietly. If I do this, if I go to Paris, what happens when we get back? Lena's expression shifted, something vulnerable flickering across her face. I don't know. I've been asking myself the same question all day. That's not very CEO of you, not having a plan. No, she agreed, a small smile tugging at her lips. It's terrifying, actually. They stood there, the empty office stretching out around them, the city lights beginning to glow through the windows. I need you to understand something, Lena said finally. Last night wasn't strategy. This morning wasn't manipulation. I'm not asking you to Paris because I want to control you or because I have some ulterior motive. Then why? Because for the first time in 5 years, I met someone who made me remember what it feels like to be seen. Not as a title, not as a bank account, just seen. She reached out, her fingers brushing his hand where it rested on the table. And because I think you need to remember that too. Ethan's breath caught. Go home, Lena said softly, stepping back, reestablishing distance. Spend the weekend with Lily. Read the materials. Think about what you want to say to the board. And on Sunday, she paused. On Sunday, decide if you're ready to stop hiding. She gathered her things efficiently, professionally, the CEO mask sliding back into place. At the door, she stopped, looking back at him. For what it's worth, Ethan, I'm glad it was you. In my kitchen this morning, last night, all of it, I'm glad. Then she was gone. Ethan sat alone in the conference room for a long time, surrounded by the evidence of a life that was changing faster than he could process. Finally, he stood, picked up the portfolio, and walked out into the evening. The city was alive around him as he made his way to the parking garage. People rushing home from work, couples heading to dinner, the eternal rhythm of life moving forward whether you were ready or not. He drove home on autopilot, his mind spinning through scenarios, possibilities, fears. Emma had picked up Lily from aftercare, as planned. When he walked into the apartment, he found them on the couch, Lily curled against her aunt's side, watching some nature documentary about marine life. Daddy! Lily scrambled off the couch and launched herself at him. He caught her, lifting her up, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. Hey, dinosaur, you have a good day? We learned about the water cycle, and I got a gold star on my math worksheet. She pulled back to look at him seriously. Aunt Emma says you have to go on a trip. Yeah, just for a few days. You'll stay with her. That okay? Lily nodded, then lowered her voice to a whisper. Is it because of the pancake lady? Ethan nearly dropped her. What? The nice lady this morning. Who knew about my lunch? Lily's expression was far too knowing for a 7-year-old. Is she your special friend? Emma was trying very hard not to laugh from the couch. We work together, Ethan managed. It's a work trip. Okay. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer. Can you bring me a souvenir? Of course. A dinosaur one, not a boring one. I'll do my best. After Emma left and Lily was settled in bed, stories read, stuffed animals arranged just right, nightlight glowing softly, Ethan sat at his small kitchen table with the portfolio spread out in front of him. He read every page again, took notes, outlined his presentation, thought about the questions the board might ask and how he'd answer them. At midnight, his phone buzzed with a text from the unknown number. Still working? Can't sleep. Nervous? Terrified. A pause, then, good. That means you care. Does it get easier? The fear? No, you just get better at functioning despite it. Ethan smiled despite himself. That's not very reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you. I'm here to push you. Why? The response took a while. When it came, it made his chest tight. Because no one ever pushed me. And I spent 10 years wishing someone had. He stared at those words for a long time before typing. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For believing I could do this. For pancakes. The pancakes were good, weren't they? They really were. Get some sleep, Ethan. Sunday comes fast. Good night, Lena. Good night. Ethan set down the phone and looked around his small apartment, at the dinosaur drawings on the fridge, at Lily's backpack hanging by the door, at the life he'd built from scratch after Sarah died, small, safe, predictable. And then he looked at the portfolio, at the presentation that could change everything, at the chance to become more than he'd allowed himself to be. He thought about Lena's words, about not wasting opportunities, about being seen. He thought about Sarah's voice in those final days. Promise me you'll keep living, really living. And slowly, with trembling hands and a heart that felt like it might burst from his chest, Ethan Miller began to believe that maybe, just maybe, he was ready to try. Saturday morning arrived with the kind of winter sunlight that made everything look sharper, clearer, like the world had been scrubbed clean overnight. Ethan woke before his alarm, his mind already racing through presentation slides and board member questions and the 1,000 ways this could all go spectacularly wrong. But first, pancakes. Because Lily had asked for them at bedtime, mentioning casually that Miss Lena's had been really good, and wouldn't it be nice if Daddy could make them too? So he stood at the stove, spatula in hand, trying to recreate whatever magic Lena had worked in this same spot 2 days ago. The batter sizzled as it hit the hot pan, forming irregular circles that looked nothing like the perfect golden discs she'd produced. Those look funny, Lily observed from her perch at the table, still in her dinosaur pajamas. They'll taste fine, Ethan said, though he wasn't entirely sure that was true. Miss Lena's were prettier. Miss Lena probably has more practice. Lily swung her legs, considering this. Is she really your work friend? Ethan's hand tightened on the spatula. Yeah, sweetheart. Why? Because you look different when you talk about her, like how Aunt Emma looks when she talks about that guy from her pottery class. 7 years old and already too perceptive for his own good. Ethan flipped the pancake, buying himself a few seconds. How do I look? Happy, but also scared, like when we went on that big roller coaster at the fair and you said it would be fun, but you held my hand really tight the whole time. The pancake was burning. Ethan rescued it, sliding it onto a plate with slightly more force than necessary. That's pretty accurate, actually. Are you going on a roller coaster for work? Something like that. Lily accepted her pancake, misshapen and slightly crispy around the edges, and drowned it in syrup with the enthusiasm only children possess. Will you be brave? The question hit harder than it should have. Ethan sat down across from her, his own breakfast forgotten. I'm going to try. Good. She took a huge bite, syrup dripping down her chin. Mommy always said being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the thing even when you are scared. Ethan's throat closed up. Sarah had said that. Had said it to Lily during doctor's visits and treatments and all those terrible, endless hospital days. Had said it to him in the quiet moments when they both knew how this story would end. Your mom was right, he managed. I know. Lily nodded seriously. She was right about a lot of things, like how you're the best daddy in the whole world even when you burn pancakes. He laughed, broken and wet. These aren't burned, they're rustic. They're burned, but I love them anyway. The day passed in a blur of normal weekend activities that felt anything but normal. Park time with Lily, where she climbed everything climbable and demanded he watch her go down the slide approximately 47 times. Grocery shopping, where she snuck dinosaur-shaped chicken nuggets into the cart when she thought he wasn't looking. Laundry, dishes, the endless maintenance of life that continued regardless of career-altering decisions looming on the horizon. But underneath it all, anxiety hummed like a live wire. Every time his phone buzzed, his heart jumped. Every quiet moment, his mind spiraled back to the presentation, to Paris, to Lena's face in his kitchen, and the impossible choice she'd placed in front of him. By Saturday evening, after Lily was asleep, Ethan had rehearsed his presentation so many times the words had lost all meaning. He stood in his living room, laptop balanced on the coffee table, speaking to an audience of empty air and furniture that didn't care about logistics integration or supply chain optimization. His phone rang at 9:47 p.m., unknown number. His pulse kicked up. Hello? You're practicing right now, aren't you? Lena's voice was warm, amused. How did you? Because I know you. And because when I'm nervous, I do the exact same thing, over-prepare until the content becomes white noise. Ethan sank onto the couch, suddenly exhausted. I sound like an idiot. Every time I run through it, it sounds worse. That's normal. By the 15th rehearsal, everything sounds terrible. He heard rustling on her end, like she was settling into a chair. Want to know a secret? Yes. The board doesn't care about perfection. They care about confidence, about vision. You could stumble over half your words, and if you believe in what you're saying, they'll believe it too. I'm not good at confidence. You're better at it than you think. You just apply it to the wrong things. You're confident about Lily's schedule, about your analysis, about fixing problems no one else sees. This isn't different. This is completely different. No, it's the same thing, just with higher stakes and better shoes. She paused. Are you packed? Not yet. Ethan. I know. I'll pack tonight. You'll need a suit, something good. Rachel emailed you the dress code details. I saw. He hadn't owned a good suit in years. The one from Sarah's funeral was 2 sizes too big now and made him look like a kid playing dress-up in his father's clothes. I'll figure it out. There's a package being delivered to your apartment tomorrow morning at 8. Don't argue, don't refuse it, just accept it. Lena, it's not charity. It's an investment. You're representing my company to the board. You need to look the part. Her voice softened. Let me do this. Please. The please got him. Lena Hartwell didn't say please often, he suspected. Okay, he said quietly. Good. Now stop rehearsing and get some sleep. You're going to be brilliant tomorrow, but only if your brain isn't fried from exhaustion. Are you sleeping? No, but I'm the CEO. Insomnia is basically a job requirement. That's not healthy. Neither is stress rehearsing at 10 o'clock at night, and yet here we both are. She laughed softly. We're quite a pair, aren't we? Is that what we are? A pair? The question hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither of them had fully examined. I don't know, Lena admitted, but I know I like talking to you at 10 o'clock at night when I should be sleeping, and I know that matters. It does matter. So let it matter. Stop overthinking everything. Just let it be what it is. What is it? Something new. Something I didn't plan for. Something that scares me in ways hostile takeovers never do. She took a breath. Something I don't want to lose. Ethan's chest felt tight. Lena, sleep, Ethan. We'll have time to figure this out. After Paris. After the presentation. After all the big, terrifying things that seem so important right now, but probably won't matter nearly as much as we think they do. And if they do matter, then we'll handle it. Together. The certainty in her voice steadied something loose inside him. That's what partners do. After they hung up, Ethan sat in the dark living room for a long time, turning the word over in his mind. Partners. Not boss and employee. Not CEO and analyst. Partners. Sunday morning arrived with the inevitability of fate. The package Lena promised showed up at exactly 8 o'clock, delivered by a courier who made Ethan sign 3 different forms. Inside was a suit that probably cost more than his monthly salary. Charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a crisp white shirt and a tie in deep blue that somehow managed to look both professional and approachable. There was a note tucked into the jacket pocket in Lena's handwriting. You'll do great. Trust yourself the way I trust you. See you at the airport. L. Emma arrived at 10 to pick up Lily, her eyes bright with curiosity that she was clearly struggling to contain. So, she said, watching as Lily stuffed her favorite stuffed animals into her overnight bag. Paris. Paris, Ethan confirmed, with your boss. For work. Right, work. Emma's smile was knowing. Work that requires designer suits and multiple days in the most romantic city in the world. It's a business trip. Uh-huh. And I'm the Queen of England. She lowered her voice as Lily disappeared into her room to grab one more dinosaur. Ethan, I haven't seen you this simultaneously terrified and excited since you asked Sarah to marry you. That's different, is it? He didn't have an answer for that. Lily emerged with approximately 15 stuffed animals, which Emma gently negotiated down to 3. They went through the usual departure routine: hugs, promises to call every night, reminders about vegetables and bedtimes that Emma would definitely ignore. At the door, Lily grabbed his hand, her small face serious. "Daddy?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "When you're being brave on the roller coaster, remember I'm proud of you, even if you scream the whole time." He pulled her into a fierce hug, breathing in her strawberry shampoo smell, memorizing the weight of her in his arms. "I love you, dinosaur." "Love you more." She pulled back, grinning. "And bring me something cool from Paris, like a tiny Eiffel Tower, or a baguette, or a French dinosaur if they have those." "I'll see what I can find." After they left, the apartment felt too quiet. Ethan moved through it mechanically, double-checking his bag, his documents, his passport, everything he needed to transform from single dad to business professional in the space of a plane ride. At 4:30 p.m., his phone buzzed with a text from Rachel Chen. "Car will arrive at your location at 5 p.m. Flight departs at 8:15. Ms. Hartwell will meet you at the executive lounge." The car, because of course there was a car, a sleek black sedan with leather seats and a driver who treated him with the kind of deference usually reserved for people far more important, arrived exactly on time. Ethan climbed in, his suit bag draped carefully over his arm, his laptop bag clutched in his other hand like a shield. The airport was chaos, as airports always were on Sunday evenings. Families returning from vacations, business travelers starting their weeks, the eternal churn of humanity moving from one place to another. But the driver led him past all of it, through a discreet side entrance to a lounge Ethan had walked past 100 times but never entered. The executive lounge was a different world, quiet, elegant, populated by people who wore expensive watches and spoke in low voices about mergers and markets. Ethan felt immediately out of place, like a kid who'd wandered into the wrong party. "Mr. Miller." He turned to find Rachel Chen rising from a leather armchair, tablet in hand, expression professionally neutral. "Mrs. Hartwell is in the conference room finalizing some details. She asked me to get you settled. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "I'm fine, thank you." Rachel nodded, then led him through the lounge to a small private room where Lena sat at a table, phone pressed to her ear, her free hand gesturing emphatically even though whoever she was talking to couldn't see her. "I don't care what their timeline is," she was saying, her voice sharp. "We own them now, which means they operate on our timeline. Make it clear." A pause. "Good. Send me the final terms by tomorrow morning. Paris time." "Yes. Thank you." She hung up and looked at Ethan, her expression shifting immediately from corporate steel to something warmer. "You made it. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might talk yourself out of it somewhere between your apartment and here." She stood, straightening her jacket. Navy today, perfectly tailored, making her look every inch the CEO. "But I'm glad you didn't." They stood there for a moment, the air between them charged with everything they hadn't said, hadn't addressed, hadn't figured out. "Nice suit," Lena said finally, her lips quirking. "Someone with excellent taste picked it out." "They must be very smart." "Terrifying, actually, but smart." She laughed, and some of the tension bled out of the room. "Ready for this? Not even a little bit?" "Good answer. Overconfidence gets people killed in boardrooms." She gathered her things with efficient movements. "The flight is 8 hours. I have work to do, and you should sleep if you can. We land at 11 a.m. local time, which gives us the afternoon to prepare. The board meeting is Monday at 9. "Tomorrow," Ethan said, his stomach dropping. "Tomorrow," Lena confirmed. "But tonight, we rest. Reset. Show up fresh." The flight was unlike anything Ethan had experienced. First class on an international route meant seats that reclined into actual beds, flight attendants who knew Lena by name, and food that bore no resemblance to the sad sandwiches he remembered from the one time he'd flown to a conference in Chicago. Lena worked for the first 3 hours, laptop open, fingers flying across the keyboard with single-minded focus. Ethan tried to review his presentation notes, but found himself watching her instead. The slight furrow between her brows when she concentrated, the way she absently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, the occasional soft curse when something on the screen displeased her. "You're staring," she said without looking up. "Sorry." "Don't be sorry, just tell me what you're thinking." I'm thinking that I still can't quite believe this is happening, that I'm on a plane to Paris with Lena Hartwell to present to a board of directors. He paused. That 4 days ago, my biggest concern was whether Lily's science project would survive the bus ride to school. Lena closed her laptop, giving him her full attention. And now? Now I'm wondering if I'm about to make the biggest mistake of my life or the best decision I've ever made. Could be both. That's not reassuring. I'm not here to reassure you, remember? I'm here to push you. She shifted in her seat, turning to face him more fully. Can I tell you something? Of course. When I took over as CEO 5 years ago, I was 32 years old, the youngest person to ever hold the position at Hartwell Dynamics. The board fought it. Half the executive team threatened to quit. Everyone said I was too young, too inexperienced, too female. Her smile was sharp. So I worked twice as hard as anyone else, proved myself over and over, made the company more profitable than it had ever been. And you know what I learned? What? That no amount of success fills the hole that comes from spending every day trying to prove you deserve to be in the room, from never letting anyone see weakness or doubt or fear, because the moment you do, they'll use it against you. She looked at him steadily. I don't want that for you, Ethan. I don't want you to spend the next 5 years wondering if you're good enough. You are, right now, as you are. His throat felt tight. How do you know? Because I've spent 6 months watching you be brilliant without even trying. Because you solve problems out of genuine curiosity, not because you need the credit. Because you care about the work itself, not what it can get you. She reached across the space between them, her hand covering his. That's rare. Especially at our level. People get cynical, calculative. They forget why they started doing this in the first place. Why did you start? Ethan asked quietly. Lena was silent for a long moment, her thumb tracing absent circles on the back of his hand. My father built Hartwell Dynamics from nothing, died of a heart attack in his office when I was 25, left it to his business partner who ran it into the ground within 3 years. By the time I was old enough, experienced enough to fight for it, the company was hemorrhaging money and talent. Her voice was steady, but something flickered in her eyes. I took it back because it was his legacy. Because I owed him that. But somewhere along the way, it became about more than that. It became about proving that I could build something that mattered, that lasted. You did that. The company is successful, profitable, stable. Lena nodded. But success is hollow when you're the only one who sees it. When there's no one to share it with who understands what it cost. She met his eyes. Until Thursday morning, when I walked into your kitchen and you looked at me like I was just a person. Not a CEO, not a billionaire. Just someone who burned pancakes and wore old t-shirts and maybe needed to be seen as much as you did. The cabin around them was quiet except for the constant hum of the engines and the occasional murmur of other passengers. Most of the lights had been dimmed for the overnight flight. I don't know how to do this, Ethan admitted. How to be the person who goes to Paris and presents to boards and wears suits that cost more than my rent. That's not who I am. It's exactly who you are. You just haven't let yourself be that person because you've been too busy surviving. Lena's fingers tightened around his. But Ethan, you're not just surviving anymore. Lily's healthy. Your job is secure. You have room now, room to become more than just dad and employee, room to be extraordinary. What if I fail? Then you fail. And we figure out what comes next, together. She smiled, soft and genuine. But you won't fail. Because I won't let you. Somewhere over the Atlantic, Ethan finally slept, Lena's hand still in his, her quiet breathing a rhythm that steadied his racing heart. He dreamed of boardrooms and pancakes, and a little girl with dinosaur pajamas telling him to be brave. Paris greeted them with gray skies and a cold that bit through expensive wool coats. The car from the airport wound through streets that looked exactly like the postcards. Cobblestones and ornate buildings and cafes with outdoor seating where people somehow managed to look elegant while drinking coffee in near-freezing temperatures. The hotel was in the 6th arrondissement, all old-world charm and modern luxury seamlessly blended. Rachel had already checked them in, had their bags sent to their rooms, had arranged every detail with the kind of precision that made Ethan wonder if she ever slept. "You're on the 4th floor," she told Ethan, handing him a key card. "Ms. Hartwell is in the suite on 6. The presentation room is reserved for 4 o'clock this afternoon for a final run-through. Dinner is at 7 with 2 of the board members who arrived early. Casual, just conversation. Nothing you need to prepare for." Ethan's head spun. "Okay." "You'll be fine," Rachel said, and something in her expression softened slightly. "Ms. Hartwell doesn't back losing horses. If she believes in you, there's a reason." His room was absurdly nice, bigger than his living room at home, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a small park. Ethan stood there for a moment, trying to reconcile this reality with the one where he'd been making burnt pancakes in a cramped kitchen just 36 hours ago. His phone buzzed. "Lena. Settle in, sleep if you can, meet in the lobby at 3:45. He tried to nap, but his brain wouldn't shut off. Instead, he unpacked, reviewed his notes for the 100th time, and video-called Lily, who was having the time of her life helping Emma throw pottery, which apparently meant getting clay everywhere. At 3:45 exactly, he met Lena in the lobby. She changed into something more casual, black pants and a soft gray sweater that made her look approachable instead of intimidating. "How's your room?" she asked as they walked toward the hotel's conference facilities. "Possibly nicer than my entire apartment." "Good. You should get used to nice things, Ethan. You've earned them." The presentation room was set up like a miniature boardroom. Sleek table, high-backed chairs, state-of-the-art video conferencing equipment. Ethan's stomach clenched. "Run through it," Lena said, settling into a chair at the head of the table. "Full presentation, pretend I'm the board." His hands shook as he connected his laptop to the display. The first slide appeared, clean, professional, the Hartwell Dynamics logo prominent in the corner. He started to speak and immediately stumbled over his opening line. "Stop," Lena said. He froze. "Look at me, not the screen. Tell me what this proposal does. Not like you're reciting a script, like you're explaining it to someone who genuinely wants to understand." Ethan took a breath and started again. This time he focused on her face, on the way she listened with complete attention, and slowly the words came easier. He walked through the analysis, the projections, the implementation strategy. He explained why this mattered, why it would work, why it was worth the risk. When he finished, Lena was silent for a long moment. "Well?" he asked, anxiety crawling up his spine. "That was perfect." "Really?" "Really. You were confident, clear, passionate. That's what the board needs to see." She stood, moving around the table toward him. "You know this material better than anyone in that room will tomorrow. Trust that. What if they ask something I don't know? Then you say, 'I don't know, but I'll find out.' Honesty is better than bullshit every single time." She stopped directly in front of him. "You've got this, Ethan. I know you don't believe it yet, but you will. Tomorrow, when you're standing in that room and they're all listening to you, you'll believe it." Dinner that night was at a restaurant that probably didn't have prices on the menu because, if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. 2 board members, Richard Chen, a silver-haired man who'd been with the company for 20 years, and Margaret Okonkwo, a sharp-eyed woman who'd made her fortune in tech before joining Hartwell's board, joined them. Ethan expected an interrogation but got conversation instead. They asked about his background, his daughter, his thoughts on the industry. Richard told stories about Lena's father. Margaret talked about her grandchildren. It was only as dessert arrived that Richard leaned back in his chair and said casually, "So Lena tells us you've got a proposal that's going to save us millions and revolutionize our supply chain. No pressure." Ethan nearly choked on his wine. "Richard," Lena said with a warning tone, but she was smiling. "I'm curious," Margaret added, her dark eyes intelligent and assessing. "What makes you think you can fix problems that have stumped our logistics team for years?" It was a test. Ethan recognized it immediately. He set down his wine glass and met her gaze steadily. "Because I'm not trying to fix old problems. I'm reframing them. The logistics team has been focused on optimization within existing systems. My proposal builds a new system entirely, one that leverages predictive AI to anticipate issues before they become problems." "Ambitious," Richard observed. Yes, but achievable. The technology exists. The data infrastructure exists. What's been missing is someone willing to take the risk of implementation. And you think you're that someone? Margaret's tone was neutral, giving nothing away. I think I'm someone who sees the potential and isn't afraid of the work it'll take to realize it. Ethan felt something settle in his chest, some kernel of certainty he hadn't known was there. And I think the cost of not trying is higher than the risk of failure. Margaret and Richard exchanged a look. Then Margaret smiled. I like him, Lena. Where have you been hiding this one? In the data analytics department, apparently, under a manager too stupid to recognize talent. Marcus? Richard laughed. Finally cut him loose, did you? 3 days ago. Should have done it years ago. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur of good food and better conversation. By the time they said goodnight, Ethan's head was spinning and his chest felt lighter than it had in days. In the hotel lobby, Lena touched his arm gently. See, you belonged at that table. They were nice. They were honest. There's a difference. She paused, something uncertain crossing her face. Do you want to have a drink? In my suite? I know it's late, but I'm too wired to sleep and... Yes, Ethan said before she could finish. Yes, I'd like that. Her suite was ridiculous. 2 stories, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seine, furniture that belonged in museums. Lena poured them both scotch from a crystal decanter and led him to the window. I never get tired of this view, she said softly, no matter how many times I come here for work. Something about this city makes everything feel possible. Is that why you chose Paris for the board meeting? Partly. Also because the numbers work better with the European time zones. She sipped her drink. But mostly because if you're going to take a leap of faith, you should do it somewhere beautiful. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the lights of the city shimmer on the dark water below. Thank you, Ethan said quietly. For what? For this. All of it. For seeing something in me I couldn't see in myself. Lena turned to face him, her expression serious. I need you to understand something, Ethan. Tomorrow, when you walk into that boardroom, you're not doing this for me. You're doing it for you. Because you deserve this opportunity. Because your ideas matter. Because you're brilliant and capable. And you've spent too long hiding behind fear and responsibility. I'm still scared. Good. Fear means you care. Just don't let it paralyze you. She set down her glass and stepped closer. And when you're standing there tomorrow, feeling like you don't belong, remember that I chose you. Not because I felt sorry for you. Not because I wanted something from you, but because I genuinely believe you're the best person for this. For all of it. All of it. His voice was barely a whisper. The presentation. The promotion. The partnership. She paused, her hand rising to touch his face gently. Whatever this is between us that we're both too scared to name. Ethan's heart was hammering so hard he was sure she could hear it. What if I mess it up? The presentation or this? Then we figure it out. Together. That's what I keep trying to tell you. You're not alone anymore. You don't have to carry everything by yourself. He closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, letting himself feel the full weight of her words. Tomorrow, Lena said softly, you're going to walk into that boardroom and you're going to show them exactly who Ethan Miller is. Not the guy who hides in cubicles and lets other people take credit. Not the single dad who's too afraid to want more. The person you actually are. Brilliant, visionary, worth listening to. What if that person fails? He won't. But even if he did, I'd still be here. Right here. Believing in him. Ethan opened his eyes and found her watching him with an expression so tender it made his chest ache. I don't know how this ends, he admitted. Neither do I. But I know how tomorrow starts. With you standing in front of the most powerful board in our industry and showing them what you can do. She smiled. And with me sitting in that room, watching you shine, feeling grateful I was smart enough to flip pancakes in your kitchen and change both our lives. Tomorrow. The word hung between them, heavy with promise and terror and possibility. They stood there by the window, Paris glowing below them, the future rushing toward them like a wave they could either ride or let drown them. Ethan thought about Lily's words, about being brave even when you're scared, He thought about Sarah's final request, about really living. And he thought about this woman in front of him, this impossible, brilliant, terrifying woman who'd somehow seen him when he'd been invisible to everyone else. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay? Okay. Tomorrow, the presentation, all of it. I'm ready." Lena's smile was radiant. "Yes, you are." She was right. He was. Monday morning came with a clarity that felt almost cruel. Ethan woke at 5:30 a.m., his body still confused by the time difference, his mind already racing through every possible scenario the day could bring. He ordered coffee from room service and stood at the window watching Paris wake up, delivery trucks rumbling over cobblestones, cafe owners setting up outdoor tables, the city stretching and yawning into consciousness. His phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Lily wanted me to tell you she believes in you. Also, she made you a good luck card, but we can't figure out how to send it through the phone. She drew a T-Rex eating a baguette. It's very avant-garde." The image made him smile, despite the anxiety coiling in his stomach. He typed back, "Tell her I love it, and I love her, and that I'm being brave even though I'm scared. That's all anyone can ask. Go show them what you're made of." At 7 a.m., Rachel appeared at his door with a garment bag. "Ms. Hartwell thought you might want your suit pressed professionally. Also, she wanted me to give you this." She handed him a small box. Inside was a pair of cufflinks, simple, elegant, silver with small blue stones that caught the light. The note read, "These were my father's. He wore them to every important meeting. They didn't make him braver, but they reminded him that he'd earned his place in the room. You've earned yours too. L." Ethan's hands trembled as he fastened them to his shirt cuffs an hour later. The suit fit perfectly. The shirt was crisp. The tie was knotted with only 3 attempts this time. He looked at himself in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Polished, professional, someone who belonged in boardrooms and corner offices. He looked like someone Lena Hartwell would believe in. The thought steadied him. At 8:15, he met Lena and Rachel in the lobby. Lena wore a navy suit that was all sharp lines and quiet power, her hair swept back severely, her expression unreadable. But when she saw him, something softened in her eyes. "You look perfect," she said quietly. "I feel like I'm wearing a costume." "You're not. You're just finally dressed for the role you were always meant to play." She adjusted his tie with quick, efficient fingers, even though it didn't need adjusting. The gesture was intimate, familiar, and several people in the lobby noticed. She didn't seem to care. Remember, they're just people. Powerful people, yes, but people. They have doubts and fears and insecurities just like everyone else. The only difference is they've learned to hide them better. That's not as comforting as you think it is. I'm not trying to comfort you. I'm trying to level the playing field. The car ride to the building where the board met, a restored 19th century structure that now housed Hartwell Dynamics European headquarters, took 12 minutes that felt like 12 hours. Lena worked on her tablet, her fingers flying across the screen, occasionally muttering things under her breath that sounded like curses in 3 different languages. Rachel sat beside her, firing off emails and confirmations with machine-like efficiency. Ethan just tried to breathe. The building was exactly what he expected, all marble and dark wood and the kind of quiet that came from serious money and serious decisions. Security waved them through with respectful nods. An elevator carried them to the top floor in hushed, expensive silence. The boardroom was massive. A table that could seat 20 dominated the center, surrounded by leather chairs that probably cost more than Ethan's car. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Paris skyline. Original artwork hung on the walls, pieces Ethan vaguely recognized from college art history courses he'd barely passed. Board members were already arriving. Richard and Margaret greeted Lena warmly, nodded at Ethan with what might have been encouragement. Others filtered in, men and women in expensive suits carrying expensive leather portfolios, their faces showing various degrees of interest, skepticism, and outright boredom. "That's James Wexler," Lena murmured, her lips barely moving as she nodded toward a man in his 60s with steel gray hair and a perpetual frown. "Former CEO of 3 Fortune 500 companies. He'll ask the hardest questions, and he'll do it to make you squirm. Don't let him see you sweat." The woman beside him? Patricia Valdez. venture capitalist. Made her first billion before she was 40. She's actually on your side already. I showed her your proposal last week and she called it inspired. You showed her my proposal. I told you, I don't back losing horses. Lena's hand brushed his, subtle enough that anyone watching would miss it. You've got this. At exactly 9 a.m., Lena called the meeting to order. Good morning, she said, her voice carrying effortlessly across the room. All conversation stopped immediately. Thank you all for being here. I know several of you traveled considerable distances on short notice, and I appreciate your flexibility. She moved to stand at the head of the table, and Ethan watched the transformation complete itself. This wasn't the woman who'd flipped pancakes in his kitchen or held his hand on an airplane. This was Lena Hartwell, CEO, commanding the room with the same ease other people used to breathe. As you're all aware, she continued, 3 weeks ago we became aware of a hostile takeover attempt by Trimark Industries. Rather than engage in a prolonged defensive battle, I chose a different approach. She paused, letting the tension build. As of last Monday at 3:47 a.m. Eastern Time, Hartwell Dynamics owns controlling interest in Trimark Industries. The room erupted. Voices overlapping, some shocked, some impressed, James Wexler looking like he'd been struck in the face. You bought them? Patricia Valdez was smiling. You actually bought them? I did. The paperwork is being finalized as we speak, but the acquisition is complete. Lena's expression remained neutral. Which brings us to the purpose of today's meeting. We now own a company with significant infrastructure overlap and operational inefficiency. We have two choices: dismantle them for parts or integrate them in a way that makes both companies stronger. Integration on that scale would cost millions, James said, his voice sharp. The logistics alone would be complex, yes, which is why I've brought someone who's developed a solution. Lena gestured to Ethan. This is Ethan Miller, senior analyst from our data analytics division. He's going to present a proposal that will not only make integration feasible, but profitable. Every eye in the room turned to Ethan. His mouth went dry. His heart hammered against his ribs so hard he was certain everyone could see it. Then he caught Lena's eye. She nodded, barely perceptible. You've got this. Ethan stood, his legs steadier than he expected. He moved to the front of the room, connected his laptop to the display with hands that only shook slightly. Good morning, he began, and his voice came out clear, strong. My name is Ethan Miller, and for the past 4 years I've been studying inefficiencies in our supply chain management. What I'm about to show you is the result of that research, and a blueprint for how we can turn the Trimark acquisition into the most significant competitive advantage in our industry. The first slide appeared, clean, professional, his, and then he started to talk. He walked them through the problem first: the overlapping distribution networks, the redundant inventory systems, the communication gaps that cost both companies millions annually. He showed them the data, the patterns he'd identified, the opportunities everyone else had missed. Then he showed them the solution: an AI-driven predictive logistics system that would integrate both companies' networks into a single, adaptive framework. Real-time inventory tracking, automated demand forecasting, dynamic routing that could respond to disruptions before they became crises. He explained the technology in terms they could understand without condescending. He walked through implementation phases with realistic timelines. He addressed potential risks honestly and outlined mitigation strategies that showed he'd thought 3 moves ahead. And somewhere in the middle of slide 17, something shifted. Ethan stopped reading from his notes, stopped thinking about the board members as judges evaluating him, started talking to them the way he'd talked to colleagues who genuinely wanted to solve a problem. He told them about the time a supplier delay had cascaded through 3 departments because no one had real-time visibility into the downstream effects. About the hours he'd spent building models that predicted these failures before they happened. About the potential he saw not just for cost savings, but for fundamental transformation of how the company operated. He talked about his daughter, about wanting to build something that would still matter when she was old enough to understand what her father did for a living. About believing that business could be both profitable and purposeful. And when he finished, when the last slide faded and he stood there in front of 14 of the most powerful people in their industry, The room was completely silent. For 3 seconds, that felt like 3 years. Then Patricia Valdez started clapping. Richard joined her, then Margaret. Then one by one, the rest of the board followed until the room filled with applause that made Ethan's ears ring and his eyes sting. "Well," James Wexler said, and even he looked impressed. "That was unexpected." "Questions?" Lena asked, and there was something in her voice, pride maybe, or vindication. The questions came fast. Technical details about the AI algorithms, financial projections for year 3, risk assessments for supply chain disruptions during integration, timeline concerns, staffing requirements. Ethan answered every single one. Not perfectly. There were a few "I'll need to verify those specific numbers" moments, but honestly, thoughtfully, showing he'd done the work and wasn't just selling them a fantasy. Patricia leaned forward, her intelligent eyes sharp. This level of integration, you'd essentially be creating a new operating model for both companies. That's not just logistics. That's cultural transformation. Yes, Ethan agreed, which is why implementation needs to be phased and why change management is built into every stage. You can't just drop new technology on people and expect them to adapt. You have to bring them along, show them why it matters, give them ownership of the process. You've thought about this extensively. I've lived in the trenches of these systems for 4 years. I know what works and what doesn't. I know where people will resist and why. This proposal isn't theoretical. It's practical, built from real experience with real constraints. James cleared his throat. "Miss Hartwell, you said Miller is a senior analyst. What's his educational background?" Ethan's stomach dropped. Here it was. The moment they'd realized he didn't have an MBA from Wharton or Stanford, that he'd gotten his bachelor's from a state school while working night shifts to pay for it. But Lena's voice was steady. "Mr. Miller has a BS in industrial engineering from the University of Michigan. He's also completed advanced coursework in data analytics and supply chain optimization. More importantly, he's been solving problems for this company for 4 years that our entire management team missed." "No MBA?" "No, just results, which I'll take over a fancy degree any day." James made a non-committal sound, but Patricia was smiling. The questions continued for another 40 minutes. By the time they finished, Ethan's shirt was damp with sweat under his jacket and his throat was dry from talking. "I think we've heard enough for now," Lena said finally. "Mr. Miller, thank you for your presentation. If you could wait outside while the board deliberates." Ethan nodded, gathering his laptop with hands that had started shaking again now that the adrenaline was fading. He walked to the door on legs that felt like rubber. In the hallway, he collapsed into a chair, his head falling into his hands. He'd done it. He'd actually done it. Stood in front of those people and presented his work and answered their questions and not completely fallen apart. Rachel appeared with a bottle of water. "You were excellent in there." I felt like I was going to throw up the entire time. "Couldn't tell. You sounded confident and knowledgeable and exactly like someone the board should listen to." She checked her phone. "They'll probably deliberate for 30 to 45 minutes. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Something to eat?" "I'm fine. Thank you." She nodded and disappeared into an office down the hall, leaving Ethan alone with his thoughts and the muffled sound of voices from behind the boardroom door. 27 minutes later, he'd counted every one, the door opened and Margaret stepped out. "They want you back in," she said, her expression unreadable. Ethan's heart stopped. "Already?" "Already." She smiled then, small but genuine. "Breathe, Miller. You did good." He walked back into the boardroom on shaking legs. 14 faces looked at him, and he couldn't read a single one. Lena sat at the head of the table, her expression professionally neutral, but her eyes met his for just a moment, and something in them steadied him. "Mr. Miller," James Wexler said, and his voice was gruff but not hostile. "The board has reviewed your proposal and discussed implementation feasibility at length." "Yes, sir." "We have some concerns. The timeline is aggressive. The cost is significant. The cultural change required is substantial." Ethan's heart sank. This was it. They were going to pass. Going to say thanks, but no thanks, and send him back to his cubicle with a nice story about that time he almost mattered. "However," James continued, and Ethan's breath caught, We also recognize that this proposal represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking this company needs. The integration of Trimark's infrastructure using your system could indeed provide significant competitive advantage. Patricia picked up where James left off. We're approving a pilot program, 6 months. You'll have a team, a budget, and direct oversight from senior leadership. If the pilot shows the results you're projecting, we'll greenlight full implementation. Ethan's vision swam. Thank you. I won't let you down. See that you don't, James said, but there was something almost like approval in his expression. You'll report directly to Ms. Hartwell for the duration of the pilot. She'll have final authority on scope and resources. Richard stood, extending his hand. Welcome to the big leagues, Miller. Try not to let it give you a heart attack. The board members began gathering their things, conversations starting up about lunch plans and flight times. Several of them stopped to shake Ethan's hand, to offer quiet words of encouragement or advice. Patricia pulled him aside briefly. I've been on this board for 7 years. That was one of the best presentations I've seen. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And don't let them grind you down with bureaucracy. You've got vision. Hold on to it. Thank you, he managed, his throat tight. When the room finally cleared, it was just Ethan and Lena and Rachel, who was efficiently packing up equipment. I'll give you two a moment, Rachel said with uncharacteristic warmth, and slipped out the door. Silence fell. Ethan looked at Lena, and all the words he wanted to say tangled up in his throat. She crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled him into a hug so fierce it knocked the breath from his lungs. You are magnificent, she whispered against his shoulder. You were absolutely magnificent. He held her, breathing in her perfume, feeling the reality of what had just happened finally start to sink in. I couldn't have done it without you, he said. Yes, you could have. You just needed someone to give you the chance. She pulled back enough to look at him, her eyes bright. This is your moment, Ethan, your achievement. Don't diminish it. They approved it. They actually approved it. Of course they did, because it's brilliant, because you're brilliant. She smiled, radiant and genuine. And now we get to build it together. The word together settled into his chest, warm and solid. What happens now? He asked. Now we have lunch. Then we spend the afternoon working out preliminary team assignments and budget allocations. Tomorrow we fly home. And Wednesday you start building the thing you've been dreaming about for 4 years. Just like that? Just like that? She touched his face gently. Welcome to your new life, Ethan Miller. They had lunch at a cafe near the Seine, just the two of them, Rachel having tactfully excused herself to handle logistics. They sat outside despite the cold, bundled in coats, eating French onion soup and crusty bread that tasted like it had been blessed by culinary deities. How do you feel? Lena asked, watching him over the rim of her wine glass. Terrified, exhilarated, like I might wake up and this will all be a dream. It's not a dream, it's just what happens when you stop hiding and let yourself be seen. Is that what you did when you took over as CEO? Eventually. Took me a few years to figure out that pretending to be invincible was exhausting and ultimately unsustainable. She set down her glass, her expression thoughtful. My father used to say that real power isn't about never showing weakness. It's about being strong enough to be vulnerable when it matters. Did he show weakness? Rarely. He was old school, thought emotions were liabilities in business. But at the end, when he knew he was dying, he told me something I've never forgotten. Her voice softened. He said the biggest regret of his life was building an empire, but forgetting to build a life. That all the success meant nothing because he'd sacrificed everything personal to achieve it. That's why you're so careful about work-life balance, Ethan said quietly. That's why I've been a workaholic for 5 years and haven't had a real relationship since I took over. Lena's smile was self-deprecating. I told myself I was honoring his legacy by making the company successful, but really, I was just terrified of ending up like him. Dying alone in an office, surrounded by quarterly reports instead of people who mattered. You're not alone now. No, I'm not. She reached across the table, her hand covering his. And that's terrifying in a completely different way. They sat in comfortable silence, watching people walk by, lovers holding hands, business people hurrying to meetings, tourists taking selfies with the Seine in the background. I talked to Lily this morning, Ethan said. She made me a good luck card. Drew a T-Rex eating a baguette. Lena laughed, bright and genuine. That's amazing. Can I see it? Emma couldn't figure out how to send it through the phone. Technology is not her forte. We'll get it when we're home. I want to see this T-Rex. She squeezed his hand. She's special, Ethan. You've done an incredible job with her. I've done my best. Some days that feels like enough. Other days, he shrugged. Other days I wonder if she'd be better off with two parents, with someone who isn't constantly juggling work and childcare and trying not to fall apart. She has exactly what she needs, a father who shows up, who loves her unconditionally, who works himself to exhaustion to give her a good life. Lena's voice was fierce. Don't ever doubt that you're enough for her. My wife used to say the same thing in those last few months when she knew she wouldn't be there to help raise Lily. The words came easier than he expected. She made me promise that I wouldn't let guilt or fear make me small, that I'd keep reaching for things even if they scared me. She sounds like she was remarkable. She was. Smart, funny, braver than I ever managed to be. She would have liked you, I think. Yeah? Yeah. She had a thing about people who said what they meant and meant what they said. No tolerance for bullshit. You would have gotten along. Lena smiled, but there was something bittersweet in it. I wish I could have met her. She would have approved of this, of you pushing me, of the presentation, of all of it. Ethan looked at their joined hands. She always said I was capable of more than I let myself believe. Guess she was right. She was absolutely right. They finished lunch and spent the afternoon in a hotel conference room working through preliminary plans. Lena brought in two of her senior directors via video conference to discuss team composition and resource allocation. Ethan found himself speaking with growing confidence about staffing needs and implementation phases and risk mitigation strategies. By the time they finished at 7 p.m., he had a core team identified, a budget approved, and a timeline that was ambitious but achievable. How does it feel? Lena asked as they walked back to the hotel through streets glowing with evening light. Being the person in charge instead of the person doing the work someone else takes credit for? Weird. Good. Also, absolutely terrifying. You'll get used to it, and you'll be great at it. She stopped walking, turning to face him on a quiet side street where the noise of the city felt distant. Ethan, I need to ask you something. Okay? What do you want this to be? Us. This thing we keep dancing around but not naming. His heart kicked against his ribs. What are my options? Honesty. That's your only option. She stepped closer, her breath misting in the cold air between them. I'm not good at this. At letting people in. At trusting that they won't leave or betray me or decide I'm too much work. My track record with relationships is abysmal. I prioritize work over everything else. I'm controlling and demanding, and I have unreasonably high standards for basically everything. That's quite a sales pitch. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm trying to be honest about what you'd be getting into. She paused, her eyes searching his. But I also know that when I'm with you, I feel less alone than I've felt in 5 years. That you make me want to be better at this whole being human thing. And that the thought of going back to how things were before you walked into my life makes me feel hollow. Ethan took a shaky breath. I'm a single dad. Lily comes first, always. I can't do spontaneous. I can't do last-minute travel plans or late nights out unless I have childcare arranged weeks in advance. My life is scheduled down to 15-minute increments. I'm terrible at romance. I haven't dated anyone since my wife died because the idea of letting someone into our little world terrified me. And now? Now I'm still terrified, but I'm also... He reached for her hand, lacing their fingers together. I'm also tired of being so careful all the time. Of protecting myself and Lily from anything that might hurt us. Of choosing safe over happy. I don't want to hurt you, or Lily. I don't think you will, not intentionally, but if we do this, really do this, we have to figure out how to make it work. How to balance your company and my daughter, and whatever this is between us. We'll figure it out, Lena said, with the same certainty she'd used in the boardroom. Together, one day at a time. No perfect plan. Just trying. I can do trying. Yeah? Yeah. He smiled, feeling lighter than he had in years. I'm apparently pretty good at terrifying new beginnings. She laughed and kissed him, right there on a Paris side street with the Eiffel Tower glowing gold in the distance and the evening settling soft around them. When they finally pulled apart, Lena rested her forehead against his. So we're doing this? Actually doing this? We're doing this. Good. Because I already told Rachel to clear my schedule Wednesday night for dinner with you and Lily. Figured we should probably make this official. Introduce the pancake lady properly. Ethan's chest felt too full. She's going to interrogate you mercilessly. I'm a CEO. I've faced hostile boardrooms and corporate raiders. I think I can handle a 7-year-old. You clearly don't know Lily. Then I'll learn. That's what people do when they care about someone. They learn the people who matter to them. They walked back to the hotel hand in hand, making plans for Wednesday dinner and discussing how to tell the company about their relationship without causing a scandal. It was practical and romantic and perfectly imperfect. That night, Ethan video called Lily from his hotel room. She answered with Emma's help, her face filling the screen, gap-toothed grin bright. Daddy, did you do the big important thing? I did, Dinosaur, and it went really well. Did you scream on the roller coaster? I was very brave, just like you told me to be. Good, she bounced excitedly. Did you bring me a souvenir? I did. It's a surprise. You'll see it when I get home tomorrow night. Is it a French dinosaur? You'll have to wait and see. Lily pouted, but accepted this. Aunt Emma says Miss Lena is coming for dinner on Wednesday. She is. That okay with you? Will she make pancakes again? Maybe. Would you like that? Yes, and I want to show her my rock collection and my dinosaur books and tell her about my science project. I'm sure she'd love to see all of it. Good. Because if she's your special friend, she should know about the important stuff. Emma's voice came from off-screen. Okay, Munchkin, time to let Dad go. He's probably tired. Love you, Daddy. Love you too, sweetheart. See you tomorrow. After they disconnected, Ethan sat for a long time just breathing, letting the magnitude of the last few days wash over him. He'd presented to a board of directors and they'd approved his proposal. He'd kissed Lena Hartwell on a Paris street corner. He'd agreed to build something ambitious and terrifying and potentially transformative. He'd chosen courage over safety. And tomorrow, he'd go home to his daughter and start building a life that included both the small, precious moments and the big, impossible dreams. For the first time since Sarah died, the future felt like something to move toward instead of something to survive. His phone buzzed with a text from Lena. Thank you. For what? For being brave enough to let me in. For trusting me with your heart and your daughter and your dreams. For reminding me why any of this matters. Ethan smiled, typing back, Thank you for seeing me, for believing in me, for flipping pancakes in my kitchen and changing everything. Best decision I ever made. Mine too. He fell asleep that night thinking about Wednesday dinner and quarterly projections and a 7-year-old girl who drew T-Rexes eating baguettes and a woman who taught him that sometimes the scariest leaps led to the softest landings. The flight home felt different from the one that had carried them to Paris. Ethan sat beside Lena in first class, their hands occasionally brushing on the armrest between them, and watched America appear beneath them through breaks in the clouds. Somewhere down there was his apartment, his daughter, his regular life waiting to collide with everything that had changed in the past 5 days. Nervous? Lena asked, not looking up from her laptop where she was reviewing integration schedules. About which part? Going back to work as the guy leading a multi-million-dollar initiative? Introducing you to Lily as more than the pancake lady? Figuring out how to navigate a relationship with my CEO without causing a corporate scandal? All of the above. Then yes, extremely nervous. She closed the laptop and turned to face him fully. We don't have to tell anyone at work. Not yet. Not until you're comfortable. People already know something's different. Jennifer cornered me Friday, asking why Rachel Chen was personally delivering things to my desk. The rumor mill is probably already running at full capacity. Let them talk. As long as we're professional at work and there's no favoritism, they can speculate all they want. Lena's expression was serious. But Ethan, I need you to understand something. This project, your pilot program, it's happening because you earned it, not because we're involved. If anyone suggests otherwise, I'll shut that down immediately. I know, I don't want people to think I slept my way into this opportunity. Then we make sure your work speaks for itself, which it will, because you're exceptional at what you do. She reached for his hand, squeezing gently. And anyone who has a problem with us can take it up with HR. I checked the company policy. There's nothing prohibiting relationships between executives as long as there's full disclosure and no direct reporting line. I report directly to you for this project. Technically, you report to the Innovation Collective, which reports to senior leadership, of which I'm a member. It's indirect enough to satisfy compliance. She smiled. I had legal review the structure 3 times. We're fine. You really thought this through. I'm a CEO. I think everything through. She paused. Except flipping pancakes in your kitchen. That was pure impulse. Best impulse I've had in a decade. They landed at 6:47 p.m. Chicago time. The car Lena had arranged dropped Ethan at his apartment building first. His luggage and the small Eiffel Tower replica he'd bought for Lily tucked safely in his bags. I'll see you tomorrow, Lena said as he gathered his things. And Wednesday night, don't forget, 7 o'clock, I'm bringing wine and dessert. Lily's going to grill you about everything from your favorite dinosaur to your position on whether plesiosaurs were technically dinosaurs. I look forward to it. She caught his hand before he could exit the car. Ethan, this is real. What we're building, all of it. Don't let doubt talk you out of it. I won't. I promise. Emma's car was parked in front of his building. Ethan found them in his apartment. Lily sprawled on the couch doing homework, Emma in the kitchen making what smelled like her famous spaghetti sauce. Daddy? Lily launched herself at him with enough force to nearly knock him over. You're home. Did you bring me a souvenir? Was Paris awesome? Did you eat snails? Aunt Emma says they eat snails there, but that sounds gross. He laughed, lifting her up even though she was getting too big for it. I missed you too, dinosaur. And yes, I brought you something. He pulled out the Eiffel Tower, about 8 inches tall, detailed in silver, with a tiny plaque that read Paris, France in elegant script. Lily's eyes went huge. It's the big pointy building. The Eiffel Tower. I thought you could put it on your shelf with your rock collection. It's perfect. She hugged it to her chest, then hugged him again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Emma appeared from the kitchen, wooden spoon in hand, her expression knowing. So, how was the trip? Successful, very successful. And the pancake lady? Ethan glanced at Lily, who was examining her souvenir with intense concentration. She's coming to dinner Wednesday night. Officially this time. Emma's smile was radiant. Good. About damn time you let someone in. Language, he said automatically. Lily, cover your ears for a second. Emma waited until Lily obligingly clapped her hands over her ears, still holding the Eiffel Tower. I'm proud of you. For taking the chance. For not letting fear keep you small. Sarah would be proud too. The words hit him square in the chest. Thanks, Em. Now go shower. You smell like airplane. Dinner's in 20 minutes. That night, after Emma left and Lily was tucked into bed with her new Eiffel Tower on her nightstand, Ethan stood in his kitchen, the same kitchen where all of this had started, and let himself feel the full weight of everything that had changed. A week ago, his biggest concern had been whether his proposal would ever see daylight. Now he was leading a pilot program that could transform the company. A week ago, he'd been alone, carefully maintaining his safe, small existence. Now he was planning dinner with a woman who made him believe in possibilities he'd stopped letting himself want. His phone buzzed. A text from Lana. Home safe? Home safe. Lily loves the Eiffel Tower. Good. Get some rest. Tomorrow starts early. Team meeting at 9 to introduce you to the core group. 9 a.m. Got it. And Ethan, I'm glad you're home. Paris was better with you there. He smiled, typing back. Everything's better with you, even terrifying board presentations. Smooth talker. Learning from the best. Wednesday morning arrived with the particular chaos that came from Lily deciding she needed to wear her sparkly dinosaur shirt that was currently in the laundry and refusing all substitutes. By the time Ethan got her to school and himself to the office, he was already 15 minutes behind schedule and running on 2 hours of sleep. The office felt different the moment he walked in. People looked at him differently, some with curiosity, some with respect, a few with barely disguised envy. Maria at reception called him Mr. Miller again. Jennifer intercepted him at the elevator with congratulations and questions about the Innovation Collective that he deflected as diplomatically as possible. Rachel was waiting at his desk, which wasn't his desk anymore. His old cubicle sat empty, his belongings already moved. Ms. Hartwell had your things transferred to your new office, Rachel said, gesturing toward the row of glass-walled offices that lined the far side of the floor. Corner office, as promised. I took the liberty of setting up your computer and organizing your files. If the arrangement doesn't work for you, I can adjust. Ethan stared at the office. At the real desk, the actual window with a view of more than a sliver of sky, the door that closed. This is really happening, he said quietly. This is really happening. Team meeting in conference room A in 30 minutes. I've prepared briefing packets for each member. Rachel's expression softened slightly. You're going to do great, Mr. Miller. Mrs. Hartwell doesn't make mistakes about people. The core team turned out to be 6 people, 3 from Hartwell's analytics department, 2 from operations, and 1 data scientist Lena had poached from a competitor. They ranged in age from mid-20s to late 50s, and all of them looked at Ethan with varying degrees of skepticism when he walked into the conference room. He understood. He was younger than half of them, had no MBA, and had been promoted past people with more seniority. If he were in their position, he'd be skeptical too. Good morning, he started, standing at the head of the table because sitting felt like hiding. I'm Ethan Miller. Some of you know me already. Some of you are probably wondering why you're here and who this guy is to be leading this team. A few small smiles. Good. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers. I don't. What I have is a vision for how we can integrate 2 massive supply chain networks in a way that makes both stronger. But vision without execution is just daydreaming. And execution requires a team of people smarter than me in their specific areas, willing to challenge my assumptions and tell me when I'm wrong. He pulled up the first slide, not the polished board presentation, but something simpler, a problem statement. We have 6 months to prove this works. 6 months to show the board that AI-driven predictive logistics isn't just buzzwords and wishful thinking. 6 months to build something that could change how our entire industry operates. He looked at each person in turn. I can't do that alone. But if you're willing to take this leap with me, if you're willing to work harder than you've probably ever worked and push boundaries and try things that might fail, then we can build something extraordinary. Sarah Chen, the data scientist, spoke up first. What's your background in AI implementation? Limited hands-on, extensive theoretical, which is why you're here. Your work on neural network optimization at your previous company was groundbreaking. I need that expertise. And if I disagree with your approach, then you tell me and we figure out the right approach together. I'm not looking for yes men. I'm looking for people who care enough to fight for the best solution. She nodded, something like approval in her expression. The meeting ran for 2 hours. They went through implementation phases, discussed resource allocation, identified potential roadblocks and mitigation strategies. Ethan let the experts talk, listened more than he spoke, and slowly felt the team start to gel. When they finally broke for lunch, David Martinez, one of the operations specialists, pulled him aside. I wasn't sure about this, David admitted. Thought maybe you were just someone's pet project, but you actually know your stuff, and you're willing to listen. That matters. I'm going to need all the help I can get. You've got it. Let's build something cool. The afternoon brought budget meetings and timeline reviews and approximately 47 decisions that all felt equally important and terrifying. By 5 p.m., Ethan's brain felt like overcooked pasta, and his stress level was approaching critical mass. His phone buzzed with a text from Lena. How's day 1 going? Overwhelming, good, terrifying, all of the above. Perfect. That means you're doing it right. See you at 7. Should I bring anything besides wine and dessert? Just yourself. And maybe low expectations. Lily's going to talk your ear off. I have high hopes for that conversation, actually. At 6:30, Ethan left the office and raced home, stopping at the grocery store for ingredients to make his best attempt at something that wouldn't embarrass him in front of a woman who probably had a private chef. He He settled on pasta with homemade marinara. Nothing fancy, but it was Lily's favorite, and he could make it without accidentally burning down the kitchen. Lily was already in full preparation mode when he arrived, having rearranged her stuffed animals so Miss Lena can see the good ones and laid out approximately 17 dinosaur books on the coffee table. "Is she here yet?" Lily asked for the 5th time in 10 minutes. "Not yet, sweetheart. She'll be here at 7. "What if she doesn't like my dinosaurs?" "She's gonna love your dinosaurs." "What if she doesn't like me?" Ethan stopped stirring the sauce and knelt down to Lily's level. "Listen to me, dinosaur. Miss Lena already likes you. She told me so. And even if she didn't like dinosaurs, which would be crazy because dinosaurs are awesome, she would still think you're amazing because you are." "Promise?" "Promise." At exactly 7 p.m., the doorbell rang. Lily raced to the door, Ethan barely managing to intercept her before she could fling it open without checking the peephole first. Lena stood in the hallway holding a bottle of wine and a bakery box, wearing jeans and a soft blue sweater that made her look approachable instead of intimidating. Her hair was down, loose around her shoulders, and she wore minimal makeup. "Hi," she said, smiling at both of them. "I brought chocolate cake. I hope that's okay." "I love chocolate cake," Lily announced. "Come in. I have so many things to show you." The evening unfolded with a sweetness Ethan hadn't anticipated. Lena let Lily give her the grand tour of their small apartment, admired the rock collection with appropriate enthusiasm, and listened intently to detailed explanations of why velociraptors were actually the size of turkeys, and not the giant monsters from the movies. Over dinner, they talked about everything and nothing. Lily told Lena about her science project on the water cycle. Lena told Lily about growing up with a father who worked all the time and taught her to love problem solving. Ethan watched them interact, the CEO and the 7-year-old, and felt something in his chest settle into place. "What's your favorite dinosaur?" Lily asked around a mouthful of pasta. Probably the Ankylosaurus. They had those club tails for protection, right? I like that they were peaceful herbivores but could still defend themselves when necessary." Lily's eyes lit up. "That's a good choice. Daddy, Miss Lena has a good favorite dinosaur." "I heard. Very respectable choice." After dinner, Lily showed Lena her Eiffel Tower souvenir and explained in detail how she was going to save up her allowance to visit Paris someday and see the real one. "I think that's an excellent goal," Lena said seriously. "And when you go, you should visit the Natural History Museum there. They have incredible dinosaur fossils." "Really?" "Really. I can send you some pictures if you want." "Yes, please." At 8:30, Ethan announced bedtime. Lily protested, but accepted it when Lena promised to come back for dinner again soon. "Can you read me a story?" Lily asked, looking at Lena with hopeful eyes. Lena glanced at Ethan, who nodded. "I'd be honored." He stood in the doorway of Lily's room, watching Lena sit on the edge of the bed reading about a dinosaur who was afraid of the dark, but learned to be brave with help from friends. Lily was tucked against her side, fighting sleep, completely comfortable with this woman who'd walked into their lives less than a week ago and somehow fit perfectly. When the story ended and Lily's eyes finally closed, Lena carefully extracted herself and followed Ethan back to the living room. "She's wonderful," Lena said softly, settling onto the couch with the wine Ethan poured. "You've done an amazing job with her. She makes it easy, most of the time." He sat beside her close enough to touch. "Thank you for being so good with her. For caring." "How could I not? She's smart and curious and completely herself without apology. I aspire to that level of authenticity." "She likes you. A lot. Which is—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "Which matters to me more than anything else. If you and Lily didn't get along, this wouldn't work. Couldn't work." "I know, and I'm glad we do. Get along." Lena set down her wine glass and turned to face him fully. "Ethan, I need you to know I'm serious about this. About us. About being part of your life in a way that includes Lily. I'm not looking for casual. I'm too old and too busy for casual." "What are you looking for?" "Partnership. Real partnership. Someone who challenges me and supports me and calls me on my bullshit when I get too caught up in work. Someone who reminds me that there's more to life than quarterly reports and board meetings." She reached for his hand. "Someone who makes me want to be better. at all of it. The work and the life and the being human part. I want that too, Ethan said, but I need you to know this won't always be easy. Lily will always be my first priority. There will be school events and sick days and emergencies that take precedence over everything else. And I can't promise I'll always be the partner you need because sometimes I'll be barely holding it together as a parent. I'm not asking for perfect. I'm asking for real, for honest, for you showing up and trying and letting me do the same. She squeezed his hand. I spent 5 years building walls because I thought that's what successful people did. And all I ended up with was success and loneliness. I don't want that anymore. What do you want? This, you, Lily. Wednesday night dinners and terrible jokes and someone who actually sees me. She smiled, soft and vulnerable. I want to build a life, not just a legacy. Ethan kissed her, slow and sweet, pouring everything he couldn't say into the connection between them. When they pulled apart, Lena rested her forehead against his. So we're doing this, she said. For real. For real. Together. One day at a time. I can work with that. They spent the rest of the evening on the couch, Lena's head on his shoulder, talking about nothing important and everything that mattered. The pilot program and its challenges, Lily's upcoming birthday and what kind of party a dinosaur-obsessed 7-year-old would want, how to navigate being a couple at work without it becoming a distraction. When Lena finally left at 11 p.m., she kissed him at the door like it was the most natural thing in the world. Thursday night dinner at my place? She suggested. I promise I cook better than just pancakes. Lily has soccer practice until 6. Friday then. I'll make something impressive. You don't have to impress me. I know, but I want to. She smiled. See you tomorrow, partner. The next 6 weeks blurred together in a chaos of meetings and code reviews and late nights building something ambitious from scratch. The pilot program consumed Ethan's days and most of his nights. Sarah Chen proved to be brilliant and demanding, pushing him to think 3 steps ahead. David kept them grounded in operational reality. The team gelled faster than Ethan had dared hope, united by the shared challenge of building something unprecedented. There were setbacks, a vendor integration that failed spectacularly in week 3, a data migration that nearly corrupted 2 years of historical records, a presentation to senior leadership where James Wexler questioned every single assumption and left Ethan feeling like he'd been through a professional meat grinder. But there were victories too. The first successful AI prediction of a supply chain disruption 2 days before it would have cost them hundreds of thousands. The moment when the Trimark team and Hartwell team stopped operating as separate entities and started functioning as one unit. The day Patricia Valdez visited and called the preliminary results exceeding expectations. Through it all, Lena was there. Not hovering, not micromanaging, but present. Available for late-night strategy sessions when Ethan got stuck. Willing to fight for resources when he needed them. Defending him in executive meetings when others questioned the timeline or budget. And outside of work, she showed up. To Lily's soccer games, cheering louder than any other parent. To parent-teacher conferences when Ethan needed support facing Lily's teacher alone. To Sunday morning pancake traditions that had somehow expanded to include her. Lily adored her, started calling her Miss Lena less and just Lena more. Asked her opinion on everything from which dinosaur was fastest to whether fractions were actually useful in real life. Included her in bedtime story rotations and demanded she come to show and tell to explain what a CEO does. Emma approved, declaring Lena the best thing to happen to you since Lily was born, and insisting they all come to her pottery class together, which turned into a monthly tradition of terrible bowls and good wine. At the 3-month mark, Ethan presented the pilot results to the board. The numbers spoke for themselves. 23% improvement in delivery efficiency, 31% reduction in inventory waste, $2.7 million in cost savings already realized. But more than that, the cultural integration was working. Teams that had been adversaries were now collaborating. Innovation was happening at every level. The board approved full implementation with a standing ovation. That night, Lena and Ethan celebrated at the small Italian restaurant where they'd had their first real date, the one after Paris. After they'd decided this was real. You did it, she said, raising her wine glass. You actually did it. We did it. This was never just me. It started with you, your vision, your courage to believe it was possible. She reached across the table for his hand. I'm so proud of you, Ethan, of everything you've built. I couldn't have done any of it without you believing in me first. Yes, you could have. You just would have taken longer to believe in yourself. She paused, something shifting in her expression. I have something for you. She pulled out a small box, jewelry-sized, wrapped simply. Ethan's heart kicked up. Lena, open it. It's not what you're thinking. Inside was a key, sleek, modern, with a tag that had an address in the city's nicest neighborhood. I bought a house, Lena said, her voice steady but her eyes uncertain. 3 bedrooms, huge backyard, excellent school district. It's 15 minutes from your apartment, 20 from the office. Close to Lily's current school so she wouldn't have to switch. Ethan stared at the key, his brain struggling to process. I'm not asking you to move in, Lena continued quickly. Not yet, not until you're ready, but I wanted you to know that I'm thinking long term, that I'm building a life that has room for both of you, that this isn't temporary for me. You bought a house with a room that would be perfect for a dinosaur-obsessed 7-year-old and a backyard where she could dig for fossils. Lena's smile was nervous. And an office for you to work from home when you need to, and a kitchen big enough for Sunday pancake traditions. Lena, I love you, she said, the words coming out in a rush. I'm in love with you, with your brilliant mind and your terrible jokes and the way you love your daughter so fiercely, with how you see the best in people and push them to be better, with how you made me remember what matters. She took a shaky breath. I know it's fast. I know we've only been together for a few months, but I've never been more certain of anything. And I wanted you to know that when you're ready, if you're ready, there's a place for you, for both of you, in my life and my home and my future. Ethan's eyes were burning. He set down the key carefully and took both her hands in his. I love you too, he said, his voice rough with emotion. I think I started falling for you the moment you stood in my kitchen looking completely at home in my old t-shirt. And every day since then you've given me more reasons. The way you listen to Lily's dinosaur facts like they're the most important thing in the world. The way you push me to be better without making me feel insufficient. The way you're building a life big enough for all of us. Yeah? Yeah. He squeezed her hands. I'm not ready to move in yet. Lily needs stability, and change is hard for her, but I want to be. Ready, I mean. I want to build that future with you. The house, and the backyard, and the Sunday pancakes and all of it. Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. Neither am I. They sealed it with a kiss that tasted like wine and promise and the particular sweetness of second chances. 6 months after that impossible Thursday morning, when Lena had appeared in his kitchen, Ethan stood in front of the entire company at the annual investor gala, the same event where this had all started. The same ballroom, the same chandelier light, but everything else transformed. He was receiving the Innovation Excellence Award, the company's highest honor for breakthrough achievement. The full logistics integration was live, exceeding projections in every metric. Other companies were already approaching them about licensing the technology. Industry publications were calling it revolutionary, but more than that, Ethan had a team, a role that challenged him, a partner who believed in him, a daughter who was thriving, a life that felt full instead of just managed. As he accepted the Crystal Award from Lena, who presented it with professional warmth and a private smile just for him, he thought about all the moments that had led here. The proposal Marcus had dismissed, the gala where Lena had first really seen him, the pancakes and the presentation, and the choice to be brave. Thank you, he said into the microphone, looking at the sea of faces. This award represents the work of an incredible team who took a risk on an ambitious idea. But more than that, it represents what's possible when we create space for innovation, when we listen to voices at every level, when we believe that the best ideas can come from anywhere if we're willing to pay attention. He glanced at Lena, who stood off to the side, her expression proud. Someone once told me that real power isn't about never showing weakness. It's about being strong enough to be vulnerable when it matters. About building not just success, but meaning. Not just a legacy, but a life. He smiled. I'm grateful to work for a company that understands that, and I'm grateful to everyone who believed this was possible. The applause was thunderous. Later, after the speeches and the networking and the obligatory photos, Ethan found Lena on the balcony overlooking the city. She'd kicked off her heels and was leaning against the railing, her face tilted toward the stars. "Hey," he said softly, joining her. "Hey yourself. Award winner." She leaned into him when he wrapped an arm around her waist. "Hell of a speech. Learned from the best." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights sparkle below them. "Lily asked me something today," Ethan said finally. "Oh?" "She asked if you were going to be her stepmom someday." Lena went still. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that we're building something important together and that she'd always be part of those decisions, that nothing happens without making sure she's okay with it." He turned to face her fully. "And then I asked her how she'd feel about that, hypothetically." "And?" She said, and I quote, "That would be awesome because then I could have a mom again, and Lena knows all the good dinosaur facts and makes really good pancakes." He smiled. "So apparently you've been approved." Lena laughed, bright and unguarded. "Well, that's a relief. I was worried about the interview process. There's still Emma to convince. Emma loves me. She told me so last week during pottery class." "Then I guess that just leaves one question." "What's that?" Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box, much smaller than the one Lena had given him months ago, simpler, but containing something infinitely more significant. "Lena Hartwell, will you marry me? Will you build this life with us? The pancakes and the dinosaurs and the late-night work sessions and all the beautiful, messy, imperfect moments in between?" Her eyes filled with tears. "That's not fair. I'm the one who's supposed to make grand gestures." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes, absolutely yes." She kissed him, fierce and joyful, and when they pulled apart, she was laughing through tears. "You know this means Lily's going to want to plan the entire wedding around a dinosaur theme. I'm fully prepared for that outcome. And that we're going to have to navigate merging households and parenting strategies and probably 1,000 arguments about work-life balance. Looking forward to everyone. And that I'm still going to be terrible at remembering to leave work at the office, and you're going to have to call me out on it. That's what partners do." She took the ring from the box, simple platinum with a small diamond, elegant and understated, and slid it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. "When did you buy this?" she asked. 2 months ago. Been carrying it around waiting for the right moment." "This is perfect. You're perfect." She kissed him again, softer this time. "How did I get so lucky?" "Pretty sure I'm the lucky one. You literally changed my entire life by making pancakes. Best decision I ever made." They went home that night, to Ethan's apartment where Lily was sleeping and Emma was waiting to hear how the gala went, and told them together. Lily shrieked with excitement and demanded to see the ring approximately 40 times. Emma cried and hugged them both and declared she'd known it from the moment she heard about the pancake incident. 3 months later, they moved into the house Lena had bought. Lily got her dinosaur-themed room with built-in bookshelves for her growing collection of paleontology texts. Ethan got his office with the view of the backyard. And Lena got a family, something she'd convinced herself she was too busy, too driven, too much to ever deserve. The wedding happened on a Saturday in late spring, small and intimate in the backyard of their new home. Lily served as ring bearer and wore a dress with a T-Rex on it. Emma cried through the entire ceremony. Rachel Chen coordinated everything with military precision and actually smiled. The Innovation Collective team came and made terrible jokes about supply chain optimization being the foundation of a strong marriage. And when Ethan and Lena exchanged vows under a canopy of lights as the sun set, promising to build a life of courage and partnership and really good pancakes, it felt like the most natural thing in the world. Later, after the guests had left and Lily was asleep upstairs and the caterers had packed up, Ethan and Lena stood in their kitchen, the kitchen that was truly theirs now, and she made him pancakes at midnight while he told her about his ideas for expanding the logistics program internationally. "You know what's funny?" Lena said, flipping a pancake with practiced ease. "What's that?" 6 months ago, I walked into your kitchen planning to seduce you with breakfast and confidence and the promise of career advancement. I thought I was in control. Thought I had it all figured out. And now? Now I realize you seduced me. with your brilliant mind and your terrible jokes and the way you love your daughter so completely. She slid the pancake onto a plate and turned to face him. You made me want to be better. At everything, not just the CEO stuff, the human stuff. You were always good at the human stuff. You just forgot to let people see it. Because I was scared of being vulnerable, of needing someone, of building something that mattered more than quarterly reports. She crossed to where he sat at the counter and kissed him softly. You taught me that being strong doesn't mean being alone, that the best things we build are the ones we build together. We make a pretty good team. The best. Upstairs, Lily's alarm clock went off. The one shaped like a triceratops that roared instead of beeping. They heard her padding across the hall to the bathroom, her voice drifting down as she sang to herself about dinosaurs and pancakes, and how her dad married her favorite person in the whole world. Think she's adjusting okay? Lena asked. I think she's thriving, like both of us. Yeah, we are. They finished the pancakes together, talking about Lily's upcoming field trip to the Natural History Museum and the board meeting next week and whether they should get a dog like Lily had been requesting. Normal conversations, domestic conversations, the kind of conversations Ethan had never imagined having with the formidable CEO who'd once stood in this exact spot and changed his entire life. As dawn started to paint the sky outside their kitchen window, Ethan pulled Lena close and thought about how sometimes the best things in life arrive when you're not looking for them. How courage isn't the absence of fear but the decision to try anyway. How family isn't just biology, but the people who show up and stay and choose you every single day. I love you, he said simply. I love you too, forever. That's a long time. Not long enough. Outside, the city was waking up. People starting their days, rushing to work, managing their careful routines and predictable lives. But inside this kitchen, in this house, with this family they'd built from courage and pancakes and impossible mornings, Ethan and Lena had found something better than predictable. They'd found extraordinary. And it had all started with a woman in an old t-shirt, a stack of pancakes, and the audacity to believe that sometimes the most terrifying leaps lead to the softest landings. The end was really just the beginning, and it was perfect.